Council will call the meeting to order. For the record, it is March 12th, 2024 at 4:31 PM. We'll begin this afternoon's work session with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilwoman Little Roberts.
Here.
Councilman Taylor.
Here.
Councilwoman Strader. Councilman Borton.
Here.
Mayor Simison.
Here. Next item up is the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borton.
we adopt the agenda as published.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as published. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. Next up is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borton.
there were no changes, so I move we approve the consent agenda as published for the mayor to sign and clerk to attest.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is agreed to. There were no items moved from the consent agenda, so with that, we'll move on to item 13, which is a procurement month proclamation. If I could have Keith and the team join me at the podium. So council, it's that time of the year where we take a moment to celebrate the activities of our procurement professionals. And I think it's no secret, but maybe for Doug, one of our newest ones, frankly, we had the procurement leaders in the state, both from, I think, maybe not amount of work, but I think the quality of the work, and definitely from a legislative side where we advocate for good procurement policies. And Keith's been a leader in that effort for many years through his and the IPPA in that context. So with that, we'll go ahead and read a proclamation and then turn it over to you for any comments, Keith. So whereas the public procurement profession plays a significant role in the efficiency and effectiveness of both government and business. And whereas in addition to the purchase of goods and services, procurement adds value to the organization by performing such functions as executing, implementing, and administering contracts, developing strategic procurement strategies, and cultivating working relationships with suppliers and departments within the organization. And whereas the Idaho government procurement professionals dedicate themselves to providing the best value for every taxpayer dollar and continue to expand their knowledge, skills, and abilities. And whereas the Idaho Public Purchasing Association, through its members, is committed to providing high caliber strategic, logistical, and operational support of all agencies associated with the chapter. And whereas the IPPA recognizes, supports, and practices the public procurement values and guiding principles of accountability, ethics, impartiality, professionalism, service, and transparency established by the National Institute for Public Procurement. Therefore, I, Mayor Robert E. Simison, hereby proclaim March 2024 as Procurement Month in the city of Meridian and urge the residents of our community to join the Idaho Public Purchasing Association in recognizing the role of purchasing and materials management profession within business, industry, and government. The 12th day of March, 2024. So congratulations on that, and thank you for all you and the team do.
Council, I want to take this opportunity to introduce you to your procurement staff. Darren Brasser here he started a year ago, July. Yep, he's a buyer, and some of you might recognize our newest buyer, Sandra Ramirez. She did take a little hiatus from the city for about a year and a half and came back and joined our staff again. So we want to I'd like to thank you all for your support in the efforts that we do here at the city, and as well as supporting me with my time down with the legislature as well. We'll continue to fight for good laws and good change, and speak our mind when sometimes we see some legislation that may not be so favorable. And there's some I just found today, so I'll be discussing that with you folks soon. But I just want to thank you all again for your support. Sure. Thank you all.
Mr. Mayor, hey Keith, I just want to, before you scurry out of here, to you and your team, I've seen you work here for a long time. And the leadership you provide, like the mayor has described, is unbelievable. A lot of your success and a lot of the success you bring to the city is things that we don't hear, and it doesn't come up, and they're not bid disputes, and they're not problems with our contracts. And that is a lot of granular detail that is easy. There's lots of opportunities to skip, maybe skip a step or cut a corner, and you never do, and you don't let anyone else do that, and you don't let the city council do that year over year over year. It's not by accident that you are recognized throughout the state. And I know your name because I run with that crowd down at the Capitol, and you are regarded as just the best of the best. People trust and respect you. And I know all of us up here do. Keep up the great work with you and your team. It really means the world because it's big numbers going through. It takes a lot of watchful eyes and care and attention, and you truly do care, and that makes a big difference. So I just wanted to recognize that for you. You've been a good friend for a long time, and we can't do what we do without you. So well done, well deserved.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Good job, Keith.
Thank you. And that's why Mr. Borton's going to be hard to replace. All right, moving on to item 14, the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council quarterly updates. Sand, turn this over to you for introductory comments.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, thank you for providing us with this opportunity to share some of MIAC's recent accomplishments. Since our MIAC students have not yet had the pleasure of presenting before the new current composition of the City Council, I thought it would be appropriate for me to preface their presentation with just a little bit of additional context for you. The Meridian Mayor's Youth Advisory Council, what we call Meridian MIAC, was established almost 18 years ago now with the goal of providing all of our local high school students the opportunity to get exposure to local government, to serve the community with volunteer projects, and to develop their potential as leaders. And over the nearly 2 decades that MIAC has been in existence, it has really left an indelible mark on the city of Meridian. Everything from events like Trunk or Treat, which started out as a MIAC project, Do the Right Day, which has turned into this citywide campaign of kindness, everything from that to the recycling bins that you see in downtown Meridian as a result of participatory budgeting that MIAC helped implement. All of that provides evidence for the real and tangible impact that our city's amazing youth have had on this community. And that legacy really does continue today. In the past calendar year, so 2023, our MIAC members collectively accrued over 2,000 hours of community service across a wide range of projects. They've learned from guest speakers who attend their meetings, they've planned and executed countless service projects, and they've interacted and engaged with elected officials and public servants who've given them a real window into the inner functions and workings of local government. And I think what's impressive to me is that they do all of this while balancing a million other commitments that we all know students have. Their work, their family, their relationships, college applications in some cases, and scholarship applications. It's a really stressful time to be a student. It really is. And that's why I deeply admire their commitment to the hard work that they put on every day to make sure that our MIAC is the best that it's ever really been. And so with that, I want to welcome Valeria and Avian, who are here to speak to you today and provide you with some insights about what MIAC has been up to these past few months.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Valeria and I'm a senior at Renaissance High School.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Avian Ramirez and I'm a senior at CUNA High School.
So today we're here to provide you an update on what MIAC has been up to in the past couple months and talk about a bit of what we have planned for the future. So first, we would like to talk about our leadership development opportunities that we have offered in the past couple of months. So first, we had a guest speaker, Dr. Bub. He is the superintendent for West Ada. And as a student from a West Ada school, it was truly insightful to see the challenges and opportunities that he has had in this position. It's crazy how much he has to deal with because there's even little things like when we had snow days and how much conflicting views that creates with parents, students, and everyone in the community. Recently, we also had a Bite of Reality with Cap Ed on February 26th. This was, again, an amazing opportunity. I have done this before, like 2 years now with Mad City Money, but they restyled it a bit and did Bite of Reality. So it allows for our MIACers to have an experience with budgeting and learning what credit is. And I think that's so important because I feel like in school, we don't learn much of what that is, and it doesn't really set us up financially that well. And learning that when you're older, you have a family, you have all these responsibilities, and you have to know how to budget your money and know how to use your credit. I think this is a great thing that everyone should get to do. We did this at our last MIAC meeting, so yesterday, and we learned about our communication styles. So we took this quiz and learned how we best communicate. Now, we're all a mix of all of these different communication styles, but we learned how to communicate with each other if they have a higher type of communication styles, whether that means they're direct, logical, energetic, or more people-oriented. And it's not that if you're one type of communication style that's bad, it's just you might have to gear your conversation a different way, and it's just more about learning. This will be happening soon, and it's the Youth Climate Action Summit. And so this is an event apart from our MIAC meetings, and it will allow students to learn more about conservation and renewable energy. And a lot of our MIACers that are attending this are really interested in ecological sciences and stuff like that, and just being an advocate for our community. And I think this will be a great opportunity. Sadly, since we're both seniors and more of our executive member council members are also seniors, we will be departing next year, but that will mean that we get new executive council members next year, and so we will be holding elections on April 22nd, and I think it's just like an amazing opportunity because we get to pass down our legacy to future students. And those executive council members will be getting to go to the AIC annual conference, and I personally love this conference. It was so fun. I got to bond with everyone. We did a community service project. We got to hear from different speakers, learn from everybody, talk to some of the council members even, and I thought it was an overall experience, so I'm excited for our future MIAC execs to go.
Now moving on to government affairs of MIAC. During as many meetings as we can, we host a Kahoot quiz based off of the mayor's own My Meridian podcast. And this has allowed us to teach members or give them the incentive to learn about parts and things of Meridian that you usually wouldn't know about. I, for one, learned that fire districts and fire stations were a thing here. I didn't know that if it weren't for the Kahoot we have. Right now, we're finishing up season 1, and we're going to plan on moving on to more season 2 content. We also recently held a legislative panel in which 3 government members were able to talk with members of MIAC. We specifically had Senator Winder, Senator Berndt, and Representative Petsky. And the MIACers were able to talk and ask them a lot of questions whilst at this meeting. And it's one of the most interactive meetings I've seen from MIACers in my time as vice chair. We also had the Youth Lobby Day here, which MIAC students received a crash course in lobbying with the American Heart Association, then spent the morning going back-to-back meetings with lawmakers to encourage lawmakers to invest in Millennium Fund dollars in tobacco, nicotine, vape education, cessation, and prevention programs. MIAC also recently went and had a tour of the Capitol in which they had a guided tour and listened in on the Senate session in the gallery and had a chat with Senator Byrne.
Okay, now moving on to our community service projects that we've had. So we had Wake Up Meridian. We have been doing this for years now, and we have been able to help many homes and rake up their leaves when it's autumn. We were also to help Councilwoman Pearl for joining and helping out with all of Wake Up Meridian. We also had the Winter Garden aglow. So we helped out throughout the Idaho Botanical Gardens to help guide visitors, just welcome them in, and just be friendly to everyone. We also had Christmas in the Meridian Parade. We ran alongside the parade floats in the Main Street and handed out candy to spectators during the Christmas and Meridian Parade. And everyone that joined this, they walked and walked through miles just to help out. I know from friends that did it that it was a great event and it was really fun.
Yeah, I definitely got my steps in that day, that's for sure.
We also had a guest speaker, Kent Christensen. So he is the treasurer of the Meridian Food Bank. I thought this was a really cool speaker. We all know about the Meridian Food Bank, but it's so interesting to learn about the logistics that go into it and how everyone that is part of this amazing organization is all volunteers. They do it out of the kindness of their heart. And with that, that inspired us to host our own food drive to help out the Meridian Food Bank. We decided to help them out because there's never enough help. There's always more to do. There's always more. So we decided to allow people to bring in food, canned goods, and everything, and then bring them over to the Meridian Food Bank. We also did Valentine's cards. I know we have done this in the past as well. We wrote Valentine's cards in one of our MIAC meetings for the senior center, and they were handed out during their lunch. And it's just a way to brighten up their day. It's something to bring joy to everyone around us. We also had holiday helpers. Again, we've done this in the past, 4th year in a row. We were asked to help set up decorations, and so we painted. We did a lot of the decoration making in our MIAC meeting, so everyone was able to be involved in that. However, we also had MIACers go to the event and set it up so people could actually enjoy it. Now, this will be coming up soon. We have hashtag Do the Right Day. And again, how Osahan said earlier, this was started years ago and we have continued the legacy on. It is just a way to promote kindness in our everyday community. A lot of times I feel like people feel that the world might not be as nice as it should be. And this is just a way to spread joy, happiness to everyone because everyone at the end deserves it. And so this is just a day to kind of celebrate that. And you'll have senior prom. This is such a fun event to just like plan in general. We have senior prom for the senior senators, senior citizens, and we host it. We were able to decorate. We were able to just plan the theme around everything, and it's amazing to see how much fun the senior citizens have. It's just like such a happy event. And now our other events.
MIAC hosted a holiday party during last December, and this event served as a way to celebrate those who have been in MIAC and for more people to join throughout the year. So we had a little holly jolly celebration right before Christmas time. And at the end of the year, we host an end of year celebration. This is where we celebrate everything we've done over the years, we play games, and we just generally celebrate everything that we've been able to do and hopefully celebrate a bright future in the upcoming years with MIAC.
So before I end this, I kind of wanted to talk about like the struggles we went through making all of this. And I can tell you that everything was so fun to do, but logistics of everything takes so much time and so much coordination with not only within our MIAC members and our executive council, but with everyone we're trying to bring into MIAC. Every guest speaker we have, everyone has to coordinate with them, their schedule, and it's sometimes hard and we can't always execute the way we want to, but I know every year we try to learn from the past and try to better our MIAC for the better.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
a question and a comment. How many MIAC members approximately do you have this year?
That's a question for Sahan to answer.
I would say 20 to 30. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Strader, that's correct. The average number of our attendees at MIAC meetings, so the ones that we have twice a month, is around 20 to 25. Depending on what time of year it is, as we get later in the year or earlier in the year, the number goes up and down a little bit, but that's the average. The total number of people that we have on our mailing list that have signed up for MIAC is closer to 75. That consists of people who essentially want to stay in the loop and learn about the sort of projects and events that we're putting on. And many of those individuals do either come to one meeting throughout the year or they participate in a service project. But because we have quite an intense schedule and we have to have that availability every Monday after school, they might have conflicts with their school, with their sports or other things. So they like to just stay in the loop, but not attend as many meetings throughout the year. So 20 at the meetings and then 75 total who are just sort of in the know.
Got it. Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
just a quick comment, Avian and Valeria. I really appreciate your positivity and the impressive amount of volunteer hours that your members have logged. You do make a huge difference, and I think it's fantastic to see. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
first, just great presentation. It's not easy to stand in front of strangers and present the way you did, so congratulations. I think that's great. I did have a question. How do you find new members, recruit, word of mouth? Are there other things that you do to encourage more people to participate?
So we have been working on that. So we have done a couple things. We do have an Instagram page. So our Instagram is page to anyone to open. They can I run it, so they can DM me. I will let them know what is going on. But we also have done announcements at schools. So we reach out to schools and let them know, oh, like, can you post this and like, can you help reach out? We have counselors recommend people to join MIAC. We also have just word of mouth, and I think we've done flyers as well.
And they also will do bring a friend day type stuff, competitions to try to get people engaged. But one of the biggest challenges is since West Ada has gone away from their day of registration, which is where we used to have booths set up and have a lot of interaction. Getting the word out, especially in schools where you don't have a large presence, can be difficult. Renaissance doesn't have a hard time getting more Renaissance people here, but the same cannot be said for getting Mountain View or a couple of the other schools. Council, any additional questions or comments? Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate you guys
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you,
and look
guys.
forward to a strong finish to the year. Speaking of the year, next up will be item 15, which is our Transportation Commission end of year report for 2023. I will turn this over to Chairman Steed.
Wow, talk about a act to follow.
Yeah, what have you been doing for the last year?
Got to keep you awake. Mr. Mayor, council members, good afternoon. I am Walter Steed, Chair of the Meridian Transportation Commission, and this is our annual report for the year 2023. The Transportation Commission was formed in February of 2013. It had previous renditions before that under different names, but we've been in this form for 11 years. It consists of 9 appointed commissioners and meets in the council chambers the first Monday of each month. Myself and Jared Smith serve as chair and vice chair and did so in 22 and 23 and have been reelected to do 2024. Other members are David Ballard, Stephen Lewis, Tracy Hopkins, Ryan Lancaster, Tom LeClaire, Zachary Shoemaker, and Hayun Song serves as our youth commissioner. We are very appreciative of representatives from District 3 Idaho Transportation Department, Ada County Highway District, Compass, Valley Regional Transit, and the West Ada School District who serve as ex officio members. Under the direction of Caleb Hood, Previous Associate Planner Miranda Carson provided primary staff support to the commission for most of 2023. Tricia Murray, Deputy City Attorney, provides legal guidance, and in March, Sergeant Tara Smith took over for Corporal Randy Goodspeed, providing regular traffic issues and concerns from the MPD to the commission. City staff provides the Transportation Commission monthly updates regarding the progress of ITD and ACHD projects in design and construction. In 2023, we started something new, which was setting aside time and getting official reports from ex officio members telling us about other things that are going on in their areas that we may not have heard of. City staff from police and parks and other staff from the ex officio agencies interact with us at various times during the year, as do members of the public. In January of 23, the commission finalized their recommendations to the council on the highest priority roadway, intersection, and community program projects for 2023. This work was the culmination of the commission's work from previous months, including recommendations from the TC Prioritization Subcommittee. Corporal Goodspeed discussed a draft ordinance considering changing the default speed limit in Meridian to 20 miles an hour from the current 25 miles an hour. A subcommittee of the commission discussed that idea but did not endorse it. In February, the agenda items included introductions of two new ex officio members, David Reinhardt from the WASD and Leila Klopfenstein from Compass. Continued discussion occurred about development patterns, parking and pedestrian access near the Celebration and Overland intersection. An update from Commissioner Leclerc presented the Ordinance and Development Subcommittee's report on regarding the downtown master plan. Moving to March, the commission welcomed Sergeant Tara Smith from police as our new liaison. The commission also heard a presentation from Ryan Head at ACHD about a new crosswalk initiative that allows pedestrians to start crossing signalized intersections prior to cars getting a green light. They've started implementing that. There's some logistics and some cost concern. They will be gradually spreading it throughout the county. An update from Caleb Hood on the status of the Intersection and Pedestrian Task Force was given in March, and concerns from a resident about access points into the commercial project on the southwest corner of 10 Mile and Cherry were discussed. Concerns about speeding on Eagle Road were also received that month, and once again, parking near Celebration and Overland was discussed by the Transportation Commission. In April, the commission learned of a concern from residents about crossing Linder Road at American Fork and Kodiak near Victory Middle School. It was agreed that WASD, ACHD, and city staff should evaluate this further, and we are awaiting another report on that. A motion was made requesting council petition ACHD to remove the parking restriction on East Cinema Drive, just south of Celebration near Overland. Concerns were shared about noise from loud mufflers, a signal at 10 Mile and Teeter, a need for a crosswalk at Black Cat and Gondola, and pedestrian flags on Chinden and Locust Grove. On May the 1st, the Ordinance and Development Subcommittee met to review destination downtown, crash data, and receive an update about the intersection and pedestrian safety efforts. During the May Transportation Commission meeting, ACHD's John Wasson provided an update on the traffic calming petition received for Lost Rapids Drive, and we also discussed the crosswalk evaluation at Bird Park on that street. An update on the Pine Avenue extension from 10 Mile to Black Cat was included in the packet, as was information on parking and bike lanes on Centerpoint Way behind Dick's Sporting Goods. ACHD also reported their findings on request in the Pheasant Point neighborhood. In June, the commission got an overview on speed cushions from ACHD staff. Valley Regional Transit provided the commission with an overview of the upcoming 2024 service changes. The Macmillan Corridor, preservation of right-of-way, constraints to widening, and the State Highway 16 overpass on that road were reviewed. At the mayor's request, we reviewed the Bell Tower Copper Cloud intersection in the Ridge Tower subdivision for safety concerns raised by a resident. In July, the commission received an update from the Ordinance and Development Subcommittee, which did not support changing the city's default speed from 25 to 20. A request for enforcement and a signal at River Valley Records was received, and a potential roundabout at this location was discussed. In August, the Transportation Commission received an update and discussed ACHD's proposed traffic calming policy. Their new pathway setback policy at intersections was also discussed, and the draft integrated 5-year work plan for 24 to 28 was shared as it was available for public review and comment at that time. A draft letter was prepared for council consideration regarding the initial draft of the plan. The commission also heard a report from WASD on changes to bus pickup and drop-off operations for Meridian Middle School on Camilla Lane. A subsequent report indicated that it was working very well. In September, commissioners and staff were given a tour of PED Safety, a Boise-based company that specializes in the design and manufacturing of pedestrian accessibility and safety solutions. The tour included an overview of their development and production facility, as well as demonstrations of their technology and products. Moving to October, the commission heard from a representative of Bird about their scooter program. Additionally, the Transportation Commission received an update on information from ITD on Eagle Road speed limits and safety analysis. Pedestrian flag requests were received for Main and King and Long Lake at Chinden. In November, the final intersection and pedestrian safety report was shared with the commission. VRT staff came to the commission and previewed the 2024 service changes that will be implemented in late June of this year. An update on the Linda Road overpass project was reviewed, and it was pointed out the design was available on ACHD's website. Lost Rapids Drive speed data from MPD and ACHD was reviewed and discussed. The Transportation Commission heard about a concern from residents living on a private lane just west of Meridian High School and their roads being used for after-school pickup. In December, Brooke Green, Pearson DeWitt, and Brian McClure presented Linda Road Pine to Eustic design options that were going out to the public via survey later that month. The commission also received an update from Brian on the ACHD Capital Roadway Improvement Guide Matrix used by the city when ACHD is designing projects. Parking issues and how the Transportation Commission would or should handle requests from the public for parking in various parts of town was discussed. The commission explored the need for stop sign placement in the drive aisles at the Night Hill project, which is at the southwest corner of Chinden and Linder. As you can see, we managed to stay pretty busy. The members of the Transportation Commission are quite grateful for our opportunity to provide service to the citizens of Meridian and to the City Council regarding transportation questions, issues, and systems in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Council, questions? Comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Wharton.
Walter, there was one comment in your report, and there's a lot. You covered a lot, so industrious year for sure. Thank you for doing all the good work. It was about ACHD's presentation concerning changing the lights, allowing pedestrians to start crossing prior to cars getting a green light. Can you give me a snapshot of what that proposal was? I had not heard of that.
It is not a proposal. It's something they're actually doing.
Oh.
It was announced in local media about the same time or right before that. Maybe we may have asked for a presentation on it. It does involve some expense and some infrastructure work, so they couldn't just do it everywhere. They're working through the county doing it, and it holds all the traffic so pedestrians can get started into the crosswalks, give them a chance to be seen, and they're not just stepping off as a car is starting to roll. They feel it will be a much safer way for these busy intersections for pedestrians to get across them. You know as well as I do, if you're sitting at a red light, you're watching the light, when you see it go green, you start turning right and may not have looked to see if somebody's stepping off the curb yet. The idea of this is they step early while you're being held.
Okay, Thank you very much, Walter. Appreciate you being here and all your work, and look forward to this year.
Thank you, sir. And if it's okay, I'm going to stay for the next item.
You can stay as well. So we will move on to item 16, which is the 2024 roadway intersection community program prioritization. I'll turn this over to Mr. Hood for any additional comments following up on last week's conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have not heard anything from you over the last week, so I am ready, though. Heather's back as well this week to take any notes, but we do need to get, before the end of this week, we do need to send Christy and the rest of ACHD our priority projects for 2024. So didn't print off copies today. I don't know if you brought back the 11 by 17 sheets. We do have the unified list that was requested 2 weeks ago now. I can go, excuse me, burn a couple copies if you'd like. But again, I haven't made any changes and didn't make any additional copies. So, Mr. Mayor, I will stand for any, again, questions, direction, action that the council would like to take this afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Schrader.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Thank you, Caleb. And I listened in on the last meeting, and I thought that the additional context and feedback from the Transportation Commission was very helpful, especially regarding the need for a north-south corridor. And it sounded like the prioritization for that would be Meridian Road. So just wanted to check on this consolidated list. Where would I see that priority?
So, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Strader, number 14 this year. So I'm using the far left-hand side. So again, the consolidated list. Meridian, Ustick to McMillan is the first one that I'm spotting here. And there should just be one more segment, and then that corridor north of the freeway is done. And then south of Overland, it's a state highway. And I do know that that is being worked on. You know, ITD is studying that. They're actually out for another, it's not an RFP, but it's something similar because it's less than a dollar amount and they actually have to go out. But 6 Mile Engineering had the last contract and they're looking at studying that corridor some more. So most of that corridor, again, north of the freeway is largely complete. Looks like 35 is the second mile north of the freeway. So 14 and 35 are the 2 miles north. And that's essentially, for ACHD purposes, that's the end of the list. I will say, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, in the past, the city has, kind of to your request a couple weeks ago, included ACHD projects, transportation's transportation, regardless of who the lead transportation agency is, on this list. Obviously, that's not the case here. We don't have any segments of Chinden or State Highway 69 or 55 on here. But at one point in time, we actually did have a fully unified list that had our state priorities competing with ACHD priorities. So,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Schrader.
So my only question that remained, and I kind of caught the answer to it, I think, in the last meeting, was just, do we want to keep the McMillan Road widening projects in their current, I guess it looks like now the 2024 ranking is a number 11 and number 12, as opposed to swapping those and moving 13 and 14 up, given we've been told that we're trying to get the preservation of right of way, but I don't think we've received feedback that ACHD is prioritizing that project anytime soon. So that was my only piece I wasn't sure about. I don't know what other people think about that, but that's the only piece that I wondered about swapping around, but I thought the rest of the changes were good.
Council? What?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
I just want to say, I think looking at what we did last week, all the conversation we had, I appreciated Caleb, you and your team highlighting a few things, especially regarding intersections and whatnot. So I'm pretty comfortable with what we have listed before us, so I appreciate your good work.
And I think that I think there's going to need to be a little bit of extra work put in for the conversation last week or the last few weeks, the range from the intersections, which are not in here, even on Meridian Road, that need to be added. And honestly, the Meridian Road segment is really not that different than McMillan in a lot of ways, except without the constraints. It wasn't planned for 5 lanes. So there, we're going to have a similar conversation with ACHD if that's what we are asking them to do, is focus on that and adjust their plan. So all of this is going to have some sort of impact conversation. But at least I think it provides the Transportation Commission an opportunity to even work on this throughout the year. We don't have to wait for ACHD. We could even, quite frankly, start working on this tomorrow or their next meeting and take these conversations into considerations and look at what needs to be added, increased, or reconsidered in that case. 'Cause I don't know that we're going to create more intersections by next year this time. It's just really where are the priorities.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Schrader.
Yeah, and I don't actually know if it will make a substantive difference. Unfortunately, swapping something a couple of spots ahead. So it seems like a lot of good work's gone into it. I appreciate your patience, Caleb, with us as we took a couple of meetings to get it right. And I really appreciate you, Chairman Steed, and the Transportation Commission for looking at it again and giving us more context. I think it resulted in a better outcome. I'm happy to make a motion that I move that we approve the 2024 roadway intersection and community program prioritization.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the prioritized list. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. It moves forward. And Caleb, thank you for pinch hitting this year. Heather, look forward to your work on this with the Transportation Commission in the next year. Okay. All right. With that, we're at the last item on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borton.
going to executive session pursuant to Idaho State Code 74-2061F.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to go into executive session. Do I have any discussion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Little Roberts.
Aye.
Taylor.
Aye.
Strader. Borton.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carries. Item is agreed to. We'll go into executive session. Council, do I have a motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borden.
move to come out of executive session.
Second.
I have a motion, a second to come out of executive session. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay.
Mr. Mayor,
The ayes have it. We are out of executive session. Councilman Borden.
we adjourn.
Motion adjourned. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We are adjourned. Council will call the meeting to order. For the record, it is March 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. We'll begin tonight's regular city council meeting with roll call attendance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilwoman Little Roberts.
Here.
Councilman Taylor.
Here.
Councilwoman Strader. Councilman Borton.
Here.
Mayor Simison.
Here. Next item is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'd all please rise and join us in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation. Next up is our community invocation, which will be delivered tonight by Mick Armstrong. If you would all please join us in the community invocation or take this as a moment of silence and reflection. Mick, nice to see you.
Father, we thank you for this great community that you've developed over the years. We thank you for the leadership we've had. I just pray for the council meeting tonight, for our mayor and our council. The decisions need to be made, many of them affecting property, and often there's a variety of feelings. And can I just pray that you would give them wisdom in those decisions. And also thank you for the many employees in this city that care for our needs, whether it be on our safety or just services, and just thank you for that. And I just pray that we can continue to be the kind of community that honors you, that calls people to family and to respect family, and it's a safe place for us to live, and a great place for businesses to thrive. And we just thank you for your blessing in our community, and we honor you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Mick. Next up is the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borton.
there were no changes, so I move that we adopt the agenda as published.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to adopt the agenda as published. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the agenda is adopted. Ms. Clerk, anyone sign up under public forum?
Mr. Mayor, no signups.
Okay, then with that, we will move right into our action items this evening. First item up is a public hearing continued from February 13, 2024 for Linder Condos H 2023-0074. We will continue this public hearing with staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The first hearing item before you tonight is for Linder Condos. This is a continued public hearing from February 13th. Council continued this project in order to allow the applicant time to provide clarifying information as to the specific tenant use and that the proposed use is not a more intensive use that's similar to what was contemplated in the original application, that the parking is appropriate for the proposed use and to address the impact on residential neighbors. The applicant has submitted a letter addressing these concerns, which should be on your desk in front of you tonight, which includes a letter from Ronald Hatch, the owner of the residential property to the north, in support of the proposed development agreement modification request. The applicant is here tonight to present. Thank you.
Thank you. Council, any questions for staff? Okay. Then would the applicant like to come forward and make any comments? Good evening.
Hello, Jeremy Putman, 499 West Main Street, Boise, Idaho. And thank you for the opportunity, Mayor Simison and council. And I was wondering if it'd be possible to put up the PowerPoint. As that's going up, I do want to just acknowledge that I was not as prepared as I should have been for the last meeting. I took a few too many things for granted. And I appreciate the opportunity provided by this continuance to present the information that we've submitted. And I'm confident that this will supply the council with the necessary information needed to support this modification request.
Sorry, just a moment here, Jeremy.
You good? Okay, good. The first thing I'd like to address is a concern about kind of the unusual circumstance for this. And I explained in the letter that no, this is not necessarily the best case scenario for my client in the original development agreement and now what we're doing in this modification. Just the circumstances behind that. This project was originally contracted with EV Studios, which was formerly New Design Architecture, where I was an employee. The client came in, we had an initial consultation, and one of my project managers at the time worked with me to develop the proposal, entered into contract, and then shortly after that, I exited EV Studio. The project continued under Julie Miller, the project manager at EV Studio, and got through the development agreement process. Unfortunately, the client did not feel that the project was represented in the best light with the outcome of only storage use being approved. And so at that time, my client terminated the project with that architecture firm. And then shortly after the approval, Mrs. Miller exited EV Studio. So it does appear that the approved development agreement document was sent to Julie Miller when she was no longer an employee of EV Studio, which was never forwarded to my client. And so part of this mix-up was just him not having the information. And so Mr. Herman did approach me at my new place of business, the architect's office. And as I was added to the project, was able to look at the approved development agreement and sent it on to him, where it was discovered that storage use was the only approved use. And unfortunately, at the development agreement hearing, my client was absent because he was out of town. So all that to say, right, oftentimes our best laid plans don't always go the way we determine, which seems to be the case for my client. So that is kind of the reasoning why the development agreement had not been signed. And then, let's see. Yeah. Next, I just want to also address something that came up in the meeting and just give a little bit of personal background about sensitivity to growth. Because I agree with you. I share those same concerns. My family used to own land a little over a half a mile away from this parcel on West Franklin Road. And it was handed down to my grandfather and his brother. And in the early 1950s, my grandfather designed and built his own home and raised a family, operated a business out there, Calnon Floral. And so all this to say, I don't say this to add an air of superiority. I just say this to understand that, yes, I am sensitive to this growth as well because it was impactful on my family as the city grew up around them. And now that land those houses are gone and that land is being, developed into storage units and apartments and things like that. So I do recognize this and just want to make sure that it's understood that I too want the best for this city because my family's vested here. And looking at the parcels on North Linder, most of these parcels have changed ownership at least in the last 10 years. And many of them have, from the information I could find on the assessor's website, have changed hands, changed ownership recently in the last couple of years. And the city of Meridian has also kind of determined that the highest best use of land and of properties in this area are to be industrial. And Meridian has a high value on industry and business, which I very much appreciate, and has done a good job of guarding particular areas of our city for that purpose. And what we're proposing here in this development agreement modification request, the uses fit, they're principally permitted in the IL zone. And the fact that we are asking for the addition of 2 more uses from the 1 storage, the additional to be warehouse and flex space, still is 3 out of the 25 principally permitted uses in this zone. And looking at these uses, well, actually, pardon, I was getting ahead of myself. We'll get there in just a little bit. So all that to say, this kind of development fits within the fabric of the area that the city of Meridian has set forward. And then to address some of the concerns about residents living to the north on 330, that the doors would be kind of facing. Mr. Hatch has purchased that property back in 2023 and has plans to develop the property for industrial use. And actually on the previous slide and in the document that was provided, Ronald Hatch is also an owner or partial owner in many of the properties along Linder, who has seen this as an opportunity, similar to my client, as an opportunity to follow the city's kind of direction and use these parcels for how the city has laid out. And so he does intend to develop this parcel, and currently he said that there's no residential activity at that property. And as the letter in Exhibit A states, he is in favor of this project. A concern that was brought up was kind of parking for this particular for this development. And as the staff report agrees that we do have adequate parking for any of the uses that could move into these condos. Meridian code requires a minimum of 7 parking stalls, and we've provided 13, which is almost 100% more parking than is required by code, which kind of leads to the volume, or maybe the volume of vehicles, or the use of these. This project is designed for small businesses or startups or entrepreneurs. The intent is for them to these business owners to carve out 2,000 square feet for their business, whether it's an online merchant making and shipping their goods across the country. We've seen a huge rise of that activity just in general, but also in the Treasure Valley, or it could be a home sound system installer who keeps their equipment and supplies there ready to go and install a sound system in somebody's home. Or it could be one of the surrounding businesses, one of the surrounding warehouse businesses that's simply run out of space and they need a little extra storage. Their main function would still remain at those larger facilities, and then that they could use this as a place to store their goods and come over and get them every now and then, and take them out for their use. These buildings would also be owner occupied. It's not a tenant situation. So there is, we all know the pride of ownership, that we do want to take care of what we own and what we're a part of. We're not proposing a large warehouse. These are condos that are appealing to the micro and small business owner here. So yes, there would be a little bit more traffic than a self-storage use, but not something that is inconsistent with the traffic that is currently on Linder or the surrounding areas. And as part of that, there will be, there will also be continued city oversight. When this project is approved, we'll have a condo plat overlaid to the property. The city, will have an opportunity to review the CC&Rs, and any owner wishing to move into one of these units will also be examined at least a very minimum level of like a certificate of occupancy. So the city is going to have an opportunity to review what goes in here and make sure that it's consistent, one with the regulations and the development agreement and the CCNRs. So we feel that this request to add warehouse and flex space will be a benefit and fits in with the overall vision of this area for the city of Meridian, and is consistent with what seems to be happening along Linder Road with the development and property transitions. And with that, I can stand for any questions.
Thank you. Council, any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
Mr. Putman, right?
Yes.
Thank you for coming. Would you mind moving back to the slide where you showed all the neighboring properties?
Certainly.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you coming back and putting some more legwork into the surrounding uses here. It does look like this corridor is definitely moving more toward the industrial use. I appreciated the property owner to the north resubmitting a letter. That's helpful. Do you have a feeling for, you kind of went through the types of tenants, I guess, small businesses. I saw somewhere in your letter, I think somewhere I saw a reference to like contractors. Could you get into more specifics about the potential types of tenants and what kind of tenant would use that size of a facility?
Certainly. Sorry, Mr. Mayor and Councilmember Strader. It is hard to kind of prognosticate into the future and see that. One example could be actually the property owner. He himself is a business owner and could occupy one of those units. But for like a contractor, someone the size of that could be a small, maybe small millwork, small HVAC contractor, like probably more on the residential scale, that would have some HVAC furnace units type of things, maybe some small sheet metal to bend for minor duct work, but mainly flex tube, something like that. Small plumbing contractor that would have maybe a small stock of fixtures and pipe. Could be a tile or a flooring contractor that wouldn't need a lot of material on hand because they may get a shipment in, need to store it for a few days before it goes out to the site. Some of those, that helps.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Mr. Putman, thank you for this was much appreciated context. I think it would have been really helpful to have had it last time. So probably lessons learned to be prepared. Certainly was helpful in me understanding what you have. One question I have, we talked about this being allowed for condo use and these individual units being sold. It seems to me if that each little unit is sold, then that person can then either use it or maybe even then lease it to another user. So it's really hard to forecast who's going to be in here. At what point does the owner intend to immediately start selling off portions of this or managing it? I'm just kind of curious what that process of using sort of that condo overlay and to sell those pieces of property.
Certainly, Mayor Simison and Councilmember Taylor, good question. I guess the intent would be to start offering, once this approval goes through, using the preliminary plans that we've got as an opportunity to market and attract potential buyers. So I think that would begin immediately. As far as kind of oversight of the project, the property owner would be the one to maintain the CCNRs initially. But then once enough tenants occupy, then it would kind of be turned over to a board for more general oversight of that. And, and those owners would be, part of that membership.
Thank you. For the record, Councilman Kavner joined us at 6:17 PM. Council, any additional questions for the applicant?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Kavner.
appreciate you putting that on the record. I think for council and the applicant and the public's benefit, I have been here since the beginning of the applicant's presentation, although just promoted to a panelist very, very recently.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to provide testimony on this item?
Mr. Mayor, just one, Kim Kelly.
Good evening. State your name and address for the record, please.
Kim Kelly, 6035 North Shandy Drive, Meridian, Idaho. I'm the owner and broker, Mr. Mayor and council members, sorry. I'm the owner and broker of Kim Kelly Real Estate and a second generation Treasure Valley native. I grew up in Nampa and moved to Meridian with my family in 2014. I was initially licensed as a real estate agent in '94, but was employed as an appraiser for Canyon County Assessor's Office during the large growth phase in the early 2000s. I was licensed as a designated broker in 2011 and have been responsible for the purchase, remodel, and sale of over 300 properties in Ada and Canyon County. So suffice it to say, I feel like I'm pretty intimately aware of the growth and the change in the real estate market in this area. I represented the applicant in his initial purchase of the subject property in August of 2019. He purchased a property for home business use and it was zoned R1, but during the process of obtaining a mortgage for the property, the appraiser refused to do a residential mortgage on the property because he said it's the highest and best use was commercial, according to USPAP standards. So after contacting multiple appraisers, getting the same answer, the applicant switched to a commercial loan and completed the purchase. He's since purchased a property more suited to his business needs as it's grown in another location of Meridian. And in researching what possibilities were for the subject property, the city indicated their desire was for the area to be industrial zoning. During this time, the applicant traveled to Denver, Colorado, and saw an industrial condo development that he liked. The units were similar to his current plan, and the tenants and owners ranged from like a coffee broker to an owner who built custom motorcycles, very customized things of that nature. At that point, he started the process with EV Studios to help annex into the city of Meridian and build a facility similar to the one in Colorado. I was present for both of the applicant's initial meetings with EV Studios and felt the architects understood what the applicant's vision was for the property and its intended use. But it became clear when we finally received the approved development agreement that something had been lost in the transitions, unfortunately. I was also present at the initial city council hearing for the approval of a development agreement, during which time he was asked questions about what types of businesses would be allowed to go. Julie was, Miss Miller. I believe Councilman Kavner asked if there would be a detail shop allowed, and Miss Miller answered no. So based on the questions and the conversations, I believed it was clear that these units were meant for locations for small businesses allowed within the scope of the zoning code. However, when the applicant finally received the DA, the development agreement, in November of 23 last year, the language was very limited to storage with timeframes of use and other limitations that would not allow small businesses to fully utilize the spaces.
You can wrap up, please.
Okay, so I guess just to say, these are going to be great for small business in the area, and I appreciate you giving us a chance to have a continuance and give you more color and information. And in support of that, I would hope that you would approve it.
Thank you. Council, any questions? All right, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to provide testimony on this item, either in the audience or online? If you're online, you can use the raise your hand feature. Seeing no one coming forward and no one raising their hand online, would the applicant like to make any final comments? Okay. Applicant waves. Any final comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borton.
I have legal just give us that snapshot chronology. This one's a little unusual because without a DA being signed and annexation kind of sat on hold awaiting for this. Just a little, every now and then this happens.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Councilman Wharton, yeah, it is, and you're correct, it's slightly unusual. I mean, normal process, after a project is completed, we would send the development agreement back to planning. Planning would transmit it to the developer. They have 6 months in which to sign it. They can request extensions. The annexation doesn't happen until the development agreement gets signed. I think what the applicant has testified to tonight is there was obviously some miscommunication on their part. I don't know how that was transmitted and went to a person who wasn't there anymore. So that happened. So I think in planning and trying to resurrect this, right, the original development agreement now is being modified to allow these uses, and that would then become the development agreement, and then annexation would occur. So yeah, I think planning and trying to keep this project on track and allow it to move forward without starting the process completely all over, made the decision to allow it to go this way with just a development agreement or modification, which is allowed in our code to allow it to amend it prior to signature. So I think that was their reasoning. I wasn't involved in that decision, but I understand the reason, and I don't think it has it doesn't violate our code for us to do it this way. So I think we're fine to move forward if the council's comfortable with that. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Yeah, I think this is a good project. I remember a lot of discussion last time around parking. I certainly think that's a valid concern. However, they're required to have 7 or 13, or 7 and 13 are provided. So you check the box. Maybe a slightly unusual process by which we get here, but sounds like we're in conformance with what is required. Looking at the other uses in the area, this seems aligned with that. And I really am interested in the idea of creating spaces for small businesses to grow and thrive here in Meridian. I think that's something that is good to promote. I think it makes some sense. And so I'm a big fan of that. So I understand some of the concerns and you know, maybe in a few years when parking is an issue because the types of tenants have a heavy usage, maybe we'll look back and regret that just a little bit, but it's hard to predict. I don't think it's our role to really, as long as they've followed the rules and followed the process that we've laid out and they're in conformance, I think it's a good project that should go forward. So at the appropriate time, I'd be willing to make a motion to approve this project.
Thank you. Council, any additional comments, questions?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Schrader.
Yeah, just a little bit of maybe feedback. I think this is an example of someone making excellent use of a continuance. So I appreciate you, Mr. Putman and Ms. Kelly, coming back with some clarification. I think for me, what has helped to mitigate my concern is the more detailed analysis of the surrounding uses, and that I think you've demonstrated pretty conclusively that this is not going to have too much of a negative impact on surrounding residential uses. It looks like that is not as much of a concern. So I think that's helped me get comfortable, as well as more context around the potential users. It is a smaller amount of space for a business, so it's kind of a business incubator. And I have faith that, you know, businesses as they grow up will hopefully be successful and find larger amounts of space as the previous owner did. So actually changed my mind on this one, and I appreciate you doing the work and coming back. Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? Or a motion to close the public hearing?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Taylor.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the public hearing is closed.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Councilman Taylor.
I'd like to make a motion to approve file number H-2023-0074 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of March 12th, 2024.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve item H 2023-0074. Is there a discussion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Little Roberts. Taylor.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Wharton.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carries and as is agreed to. Thank you very much. Next item up is item 2, which is a public hearing for Ultra Clean Franklin H 2023-0064. We will open this public hearing with comments from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The next application before you tonight is a request for a development agreement modification. This site consists of 2 acres of land. It's owned CG. It's located at 3070 East Franklin Road on the north side of Franklin, just west of Eagle Road. This property was annexed back in 1996. The annexation ordinance, number 737, Haskin Green, approved for the property, requires the property owner to enter into a development agreement with the city prior to issuance of a building permit or plat approval, whichever occurs first. The ordinance includes requirements for inclusion in the future development agreement and compliance with the findings associated with the annexation. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation is commercial. The applicant requests a new development agreement with a modification to the terms of the agreement required with the annexation ordinance. No development has occurred on the property, and the property has changed ownership since it was annexed. The original plan was to subdivide the property for individual building sites, but that plan never came to fruition. The new property owner would like to develop the property with a vehicle washing facility. Because there are many outdated requirements in the development agreement and references to city code that are no longer in effect, staff recommends new provisions with this application that are applicable to the proposed development, which will replace the original ones. A conceptual development plan was submitted as shown that demonstrates how the site is proposed to develop with a vehicle washing facility. The proposed use is a principal permitted use in the CG zoning district and is subject to the specific use standards listed in the UDC for such use. Staff has reviewed the site plan and finds it demonstrates safe pedestrian and vehicular access and circulation on the site. Stacking lanes have sufficient capacity to prevent obstruction of the public right-of-way. Although no residential uses or districts abut the site, an extended stay hotel exists directly to the north, which may be impacted by noise from the car wash and vacuums. As mitigation, staff recommends the hours of operation are limited from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Dense landscaping is provided along the northern boundary of the site, and mufflers are provided on the vacuums, which should assist in reducing the noise and visual impacts of the proposed use. Access is proposed via North Olson Avenue, a local street along the west boundary of the site. No access is proposed or approved via Franklin Road. Although a cross-access easement exists to this site from the abutting property to the north, there is approximately a 9-foot fall in grade from the proposed driveway to the existing driveway and a significant cross slope, which would make a shared access difficult. For this reason, staff and ACHD supports the proposed access from Olson and does not recommend the cross-access easement to the north is utilized. Snyder Lateral bisects the western portion of this site within a 40-foot wide easement and is proposed to be piped with development. A 35-foot wide street buffer is required along Franklin Road, an entryway corridor landscaped in accord with the enhanced landscape standards for such. A detached sidewalk is proposed to be constructed along Franklin Road that staff recommends is 10 feet in width, extending off-site along Franklin to the east across the ACHD property to connect to the 10-foot pathway along Eagle Road, if consent can be obtained from ACHD. Conceptual building elevations were submitted for the proposed structure as shown. Building materials consist of a mix of natural limestone and burnished CMU in neutral colors and wood grain printed metal cladding. Final design is required to comply with the design standards in the city's Architectural Standards Manual. Written testimony has been received from Stephanie Hopkins, KM Engineering, the applicant's representative, and they are in agreement with the staff report. Staff is recommending approval with the conditions in the report. The applicant's here tonight to present.
Thank you, Sonia. Council, any questions for staff? Okay. Does the applicant like to come forward making comments?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name's Stephanie Hopkins. I work for KM Engineering. Our address is 5725 North Discovery Way in Boise. Sonia did a fantastic job covering that, so I don't have a whole lot to add, but I do have a presentation. So I'll show you our site plan and landscape plan and kind of talk through some of the conditions that they are recommending, or she's recommending.
Just a moment here. Just a sec. So Sonia covered the location well. It's at the northwest corner of Franklin and Eagle. It's a pretty challenging site. There's a fair amount of grade, as I'm sure most of you are aware. As the site slopes to the northeast, it drops off a fair amount. So we had to be pretty creative with our site design. Did place the building towards the roadway, which is one of the city's requests a lot of times with the design review applications, and placed 3 stacking lanes for vehicles as they enter the site to make sure there's enough room for folks as they're waiting for a car wash. Access will be via Olson Avenue, which we've coordinated with staff and ACHD. And we're including 24 or 26 parking spaces overall, 23 of which will be for vacuums, 2 for employees, and then there is 1 accessible stall as well. The building is about 7,200 square feet, and we've placed some landscaping along the northern boundary. As staff is conditioned, we'll probably have to beef that landscaping up a little bit. Right now, we have a couple of different deciduous trees along the northern boundary. We'll include a mix of evergreen and deciduous, and then throw some shrubs in there as well to make sure that they reach a maturity in 5 years. And then throughout the site, we have designed it in compliance with code. We initially had shown a 5-foot sidewalk along Franklin. It's an entryway corridor, so we'll increase that to 10 feet, make sure we're complying with the city's requirements there. And then our client will work with ACHD to see if we can get consent from them to further the multi-use pathway to the east over at Eagle Road. Let's see. We are, the vacuums that this company uses actually include the mufflers, so that'll be a perfect way to comply with staff's recommendation. And otherwise, they've been working with I believe that they're under contract to purchase the property from the Water Rock development. So they've been working with that hotel group pretty closely to determine what they would need. And they're good with the recommendations that city staff is recommending. So these are the building elevations, which Sonia showed you. We actually initially had submitted a certificate of zoning compliance and design review application because this is a principally permitted use, not realizing there was an ordinance that was applicable. So we spoke with staff. They recommended we come in and modify the development agreement just to make sure that all the provisions are current and reflect current code and our current proposal. So we are in agreement with the staff report and the conditions, and I will stand for questions if you have them.
Thank you, Stephanie. And I don't know if this question is for you or for Sonia, or if I just missed it. What's proposed to the east of this property? This doesn't go all the way over to Eagle Road based upon the overview. Is that going to remain vacant?
Thank you,
Forever?
Mr. Mayor. I can answer that question.
Okay.
It's actually ACHD property directly to the east. So we utilize the 2 acres that are outlined in yellow as fully as we could. And to the east of where you see the drive aisle kind of curving up to the north is just vacant because it's ACHD property if they want to expand the roadway there.
Okay, is it planned in in the long term to be expanded? I'm just kind of wondering what we're going to end up with long term in this location if we're not going to have any access anyways. It's just going to, no disrespect to ACHD, it's a wonderful dirt lot for a lot of campaign signs that people put up. But it'd be nice if it wasn't just a vacant dirt parcel for the next 30 years. But I don't see what else you could do with it since there won't be any access to it.
Mr. Mayor, I agree. I think it's just one of those, it's a piece of ground that they've held to make sure that if they need to expand Eagle Road there or possibly add more stacking for right turns, that it'd be available.
It's a lot of land. Is there a chance that you guys could purchase some land to shift your buildings? I'm sure you would love more corner frontage than, I don't know that we can solve this tonight, but it's going to be a long-term eyesore if under this scenario. That's my comment, not a solution. So. Council, any additional comments, not solutions for the applicant?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Borton.
If this wasn't already annexed, it's a different conversation perhaps, but that ship has sailed. This parcel itself is already in the city. Stephanie, are there any, I missed it if it's in the application, but are there any left ins or left outs on Franklin from this?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Borton, no, the only access will be via Olson Avenue. The driveway that we're proposing is going,
I guess that's what I mean, left into Olson or left
Yes.
out of Olson?
I'm not remembering offhand. I believe that we are proposing a left in, which is one of the, or left out, which is one of the reasons that ACHD had to modify their policy. Our access is a little bit closer to Franklin than they would normally permit. So that was something we worked with ACHD staff on to kind of coordinate. Maybe Sonia remembers or has the staff report
I
handy.
would have thought it'd be a right in, right out, but their condition allows a left out or left in of this?
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Borton, I believe ACHD approved a full access. I don't believe there was any restrictions associated with it. They did approve, as Stephanie said, a modification to policy to allow the proposed access.
You know, Mr. Mayor,
Councilman
I'm
Borton.
just curious now, how close is it from the too close? It just seems interesting. Not that,
I can look it up if
Throw
you'd
it
like to know.
sideways.
It's in the ACHD report.
I'm just curious if it's,
Thank you,
5
Sonia.
feet
I
or
remember. I think
55 feet.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Borton, I believe it was like 20 feet or something like
Well, or
that,
not.
but don't quote me. I can't remember
Okay.
for sure.
Okay, but they've approved it. Okay. That's good, Sonia. I'm just curious if it's a matter of feet, a nominal amount. It seems oftentimes that type of request is denied. So,
Yes. Agreed.
okay, thank you.
Council, any additional questions for the applicant? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Clerk, you want to sign up on this item?
Mr. Mayor, no.
Okay, is there anybody present who would like to provide testimony on this item, either in the audience or online? Or online, you can use the raise your hand feature. Go ahead and come on forward. You can state your name and address, be recognized for 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Lori Ballad, 192 West Lockhart Lane, Meridian, Idaho. Just heard about this. I think it's a wonderful idea. I do have concerns with the left-hand turn lane right before Eagle. That seems like it's an accident waiting to happen. And I also agree with you that maybe instead of an impact fee type of situation, that they can put in that they need to do low-growing shrubs and some type of something there that's low, like little to no maintenance, so at least it keeps the city looking nice.
Thank you. Council, any questions? Thank you. Would the applicant like to make any final comments? Okay, applicant waives.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Schrader.
happy to kick off the discussion. It's already a permitted use. Feels like a new DA agreement makes good sense. I thought staff's proposed mitigations for the extended stay hotel made good sense. I share the concern about the left out so close to Eagle Road. But we're not the authority that determines that. I am very surprised it was granted approval though, just based on what we've seen. Doesn't feel like, the city has a role in discussing that further, unless I know ACHD is here, if they, just wanted to throw it out, if they had comment about that particular aspect.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, for the record, Christy Enselman, Planning Supervisor with ACHD. So this particular application, that access on Olson is existing. When we looked at this application, it was specifically for the new driveway access that they were asking for, so we didn't address the existing full movement on Franklin. But I did a quick measurement on my computer, and it's about 760 feet from the intersection near edge to near edge, from Eagle to Olson. And our for full access at 660. So they're over 100 feet away from a full access that would be allowed on an arterial.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilwoman Schrader.
Thank you.
But fell asleep, sorry.
We appreciate that. It's very enlightening. Thank you.
Since you're there, Chrissy, any chance that we can get anything done with that corner long-term? I mean, is that a conversation you can take back to this? Because I mean, even if you made a retention pond, at least you put landscaping kind of around those.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to take that back to my leadership if there's a request for that. I did also check quickly on our 20-year plan, and this intersection is not in there. That doesn't mean that there's not potential for that to be widened in the future, but I'm happy to take something back to my leadership. I don't get paid the big bucks to make that decision this evening.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Councilman Taylor.
Well, I was always wondering what could possibly be put at this location. So I'm glad to see there's a good use, and I love a good car wash. And I would think that if you're going to invest the kind of resources to put a car wash in, you know how many cars are going through there and how many trips you can get in there. So I think it's a good project. I'd make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Is there a discussion? If not, in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the public hearing is closed.
Mayor, this is Bill, may I have a moment? I had a chance to talk with the applicant a little bit more. I have asked her to also go back to her client and see if they would entertain entering into a license agreement with ACHD to incorporate that corner into their design, or at least agree to maintain it as they operate their business. So that is an opportunity where that discussion could maybe happen and we could get some type of improvement on there, at least have it maintained. So it does enhance the overall corner in that area.
Thank you. I think it'll be a benefit to the business as much as anything else. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Taylor, Councilman Taylor.
For a motion for approval, I move to approve file number H-2023-0064 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of March 12th, 2024.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve item H 2023-0064. Is there discussion on the motion? If not,
Mayor, may I clarify? Was that motion intended to include Mr. Parsons' comments about a license agreement? Just clarify in your motion, please. Thank you.
For a revised motion, Mayor Simpson,
Councilman Taylor.
I move to approve file number H-2023-0064 with the modification for the potential for a license agreement to, for that parcel. Does that work?
Second agree for discussion. I guess I'm going to turn to legal counsel. I mean, are we asking, just so clarification, if they don't do a license agreement, that's okay in that motion?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that's the way I took it. This was just simply a direction for them to do that, not a requirement for them to move forward.
Just
To
wanna make
have
sure
an agreement.
Everyone's on the same page moving forward, so okay. All right. And we have second agree. Is there further discussion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Roberts. Taylor.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Borton.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carried. The item is agreed to. Thank you and good luck. Okay, next up is item 3, public hearing for Stonehill Church, H 2023-0041. We will open this public hearing with staff comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The next application before you is a request for a development agreement modification, a rezone, a preliminary plat, and a conditional use permit. This site consists of 65.43 acres of land. It's zoned R4 and is located at 799 West Amity Road on the south side of Amity, midway between Meridian and Linder Roads. This property was part of the area included in the South Meridian annexation area in 2015. A development agreement exists for this property that requires an amendment to the agreement prior to any future development on the site. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation is low-density residential. The applicant is requesting a modification to the existing agreement to allow for the development of a church on the northeast portion of the property and removal of that property from the original agreement for inclusion in a new agreement just for the church property. The remainder of the property will continue to be governed by the existing development agreement. A rezone of 13.36 acres of land is proposed from the R4 to the R8 zoning district for the development of a church, which requires a conditional use permit in the R8 district. A preliminary plat is proposed consisting of 4 building lots on 65.43 acres of land in the R4 and R8 zoning districts for Stonehill Crossing subdivision. The preliminary plat is proposed to develop in one phase. The reason the property is proposed to be subdivided at this time is to create a lot for the church to develop on the remainder of the site. Except for the lot where the existing home is located to the south of the proposed church, is proposed to be re-subdivided in the future prior to development. Transportation improvements proposed for this subdivision consist of construction of a collector street from Amity Road to the southern boundary of the site, and a roundabout at the Amity Collector Street intersection in accord with the master street map, and the widening of Amity Road. The church is proposed to develop on Lot 1, Block 1, and that is this lot right here, if you can see my cursor. The existing home on the east side of the proposed Collector Street is proposed to remain on Lot 2, Block 1, and that is this lot right here. Lot 3, Block 1, and Lot 1, Block 2 are proposed as mega lots to be further re-subdivided in the future prior to development. And that is this whole area here and this area here. Another existing home on the west side of the Collector Street is proposed to remain for the time being on Lot 1, Block 2, and that is in this general area right here. Access is proposed for Lot 1, Block 1, the church, via 2 driveway accesses from the Collector Street and an emergency-only access driveway from Amity Road. The existing home on the east side of the collector is proposed to be accessed temporarily through the church property. Subsequent access is proposed from a local street at the east boundary via a flag. The UDC limits access points to collector and arterial streets to improve safety and to ensure that motorists can safely enter all streets unless otherwise waived by City Council. Further, the UDC requires all subdivisions to provide local street access to any use that currently takes direct access from an arterial or collector street. For this reason, staff recommends a local street is provided between the church and the existing home to provide access to both uses, and the accesses via the collector are removed. So again, this is the existing home, the church. This is where the local street is proposed, right through here. The applicant is requesting approval of a waiver from council for the 2 proposed accesses via the collector street. A temporary access is proposed via the collector street for the existing home on the west side of the collector street, since no development is proposed on that lot at this time. If that home is retained in the future, retained with the future re-subdivision, local street access should be provided. The applicant does have a concept drawing that they're going to present tonight that shows only one access to the collector and a local street as recommended by staff between these 2 lots. The Calkins lateral lies on the western portion of this site within a 56-foot wide easement, and the Bell sublateral lies along the east boundary of the southern portion of this site within a 50-foot wide easement, 25 feet on each side. A 25-foot wide street buffer is required along Amity Road, and a 20-foot buffer is required along the Collector Street, landscaped per UDC standards. A 10-foot wide detached sidewalk is required along Amity, and a 5-foot wide detached sidewalk is required along the Collector Street. A 10-foot wide multi-use pathway is required along the Calkins lateral in accord with the pathway's master plan. The applicant is requesting deferral of several improvements typically required with a subdivision until such time as Lot 3, Block 1 and Lot 1, Block 2 is re-subdivided in the future as follows. And again, that's this whole area west of the Collector Street and this lot right here around the existing home south of the church. So these are the items requested for deferral. Street buffer landscaping and a 10-foot wide sidewalk along Amity Road west of the Collector Street. The multi-use pathway along the Calkins lateral. Open space and site amenities for the residential development. Piping or improving the laterals that cross this site as a water amenity or linear open space. And closing of the existing farm access and irrigation district access via Amity Road west of the Collector Street. A conditional use permit is proposed for a 52,000 square foot church on 13.09 acres of land in an R8 zoning district. Compliance with the specific use standards in the UDC for church uses is required. The church is proposed to develop in 2 phases, as shown on the phasing plan. The first phase will consist of approximately 40,000 square feet, and the second phase will consist of approximately 12,000 square feet. Access to the site will be determined by with the associated preliminary plat by the city and ACHD. Off-street parking is required in accord with UDC standards. A minimum of 104 spaces are required. Approximately 710 spaces are proposed at build-out. Conceptual building elevations were submitted for the proposed 2-story structure as shown. Building materials consist of a mix of stucco, vertical rough sawn, architectural wall panels, and corrugated painted metal panels in horizontal orientation. These elevations have not been reviewed for compliance with the design standards in the Architectural Standards Manual and are not approved with this application. Review will take place with submittal of the design review application with the certificate of zoning compliance application prior to submittal of a building permit application. The commission recommended approval of these applications, and I'll go through a summary of the commission hearing. John Renison Design, applicant's representative, testified in favor. No one testified in opposition or commented on the application. A written testimony was received from the applicant, John Renison. Key issues, there were really no items of discussion. There was no public testimony. Key issues of discussion by the commission were as follows. The applicant's request for deferral of improvements typically required with the subdivision. The applicant's request for removal of the condition number 2.1G requiring a local street to be provided between lots 1 and 2, block 1 for access to the church and existing residents. The commission did not make any changes to the staff recommendation. And there are a few outstanding issues for council tonight as follows. The applicant's request for deferral of certain improvements typically required with the subdivision, as I noted. The applicant's request for removal of condition 2.1G requiring a local street to be provided between lots 1 and 2, block 1 for access to the church and existing residents. As I mentioned, the applicant does have a concept drawing that he's going to present to you tonight that does show that local street. From what I understand, they are willing to put that in tonight. And then finally, the applicant's request for a waiver to UDC 11, 3A, 3A1 to allow one access via South Oakbriar Way, the Collector Street. No written testimony has been received since the commission hearing, and the applicant is here to present tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Council, any questions for staff? Okay, thank you very much. Would the applicant like to come forward? Good evening. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
John Renison at 2025 East Riverside Drive in Eagle. Thanks very much for the opportunity to visit with you guys. A little too, can't hear me here. I'll step up. Thanks. Okay. Very good. If you, good. Well, Sonia, thank you very much. She pretty much covered it. There are just a couple things that we sort of have outstanding. I want to take a few minutes, go over them with you, orientate you a little bit, and we can delve in just a little bit, and then I also wanted to let you know that Doug Conley is here tonight also. He wanted to say a few things after we cover the technical stuff. He's the pastor of the church. Okay, we'd like that opportunity as soon as we're done talking about the technical stuff. So let's see, if we could hit access first, it'd be great. Sonia, if you could pull up that little exhibit we worked on today. Yep, perfect, okay. So to clarify the access, one, so the original design here that we produced is to, well, let me step back a couple things, couple steps here for you guys. So this piece of property has been graciously donated to the church, and we've been working for a couple of years here to get to where we are in front of you guys tonight. One of the catalysts to get the church going here is obviously the rezone. We need that, the CUP for the church, but also the preliminary plat. And with the preliminary plat comes the rest of this typical subdivision improvements. One of them is to build, the request was to build a collector road that runs kind of north-south through the development. It starts at Amity and goes to the, clear to the southern end of the property. So one of kind of your typical requirements. So we're okay with that. And then in designing the access to the site, we wouldn't, of course, take direct access off of Amity, but rather off of the collector. So with the church parcel being so large, it encompasses, the northeast quadrant of this overall development, moreover. And so we border really Amity Road and the collector road. So there's really not another option for us really but to take access to the collector road. And so on number 1 here, where it says full access driveway, so our request still stands. Could you guys give us a waiver to allow the church to have direct access to the collector road at that location? Okay, so that's one. Our original request was to take a secondary access to the church and for the church only at location number 2 on the map here, okay? So that one, in working with Sonia, she said, hey, we really need or prefer to have local street access to collectors. And so at this location, it'd probably be better if we considered a local roadway and make some kind of local roadway improvements, have the church take access to the local roadway and then to the collector, okay? So when we're at P&Z, at that time, we said, hey, we're not quite sure that we wanted to have a roadway right there between the existing house and the church. And so at that time, we made a suggestion for another way to deal with this, which, Sonia, do you happen to have that exhibit that we did at the P&Z, that one had the flag lot access? While she's looking for that, there's in your staff report, item 5, says 5B, there's 2 5Bs. The bottom one talks about a flag lot access to the existing residence on lot 2, block 1, coming off of that cul-de-sac. So that's what we suggested as an alternative for, and if we don't have that exhibit, that's okay. But we threw out an idea to P&Z, and P&Z said, I think we're going to punt on this issue. We might like to see a road. So we've talked internally with the church and together with the property owner to the south, and have just concluded that we could put this roadway in and do what we just kind of covered, which is extend the roadway to the east side of the existing residential lot that would remain, take access to the local road from the church. So that's kind of where we stand. I wanted to bring that other option up in case you guys thought that other option would be a better idea. We're good with either at this point. Okay, so be clear with that. So any questions on the access?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Borton.
Trying to track, I'd love to see it. See the condition, I see the narrative in 5B.
Yeah,
But this-
the last item.
Yeah, look, there we go.
So this is, so the concept, I will explain this one. It's worthy of a few minutes. So the idea here was that we would, the primary access to the church would be to the collector and only for the church use, right? And then the existing home would temporarily take access through the church parcel and then onto the collector, okay? And when the rest of the property developed, understand we're not building the rest of the subdivision. We're not really here to talk about that, to be clear. But this map shows, you know, an idea of how it could develop into a residential subdivision. And at that time, then the existing home could take access through the cul-de-sac there on Street K. That was the idea, and that was this idea is still on the table, frankly. If you guys thought that might be a better way to go, we're open to either one. We can either punch a local road through, or we could pursue something that looks more like this. We're good either way.
In the yellow on the east side of the church property, is that to allow access to that road at that point in time as well?
Correct.
Okay. Council, any questions or comments on that at this time?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Borton.
Sonia, can you comment on the slide that's on the screen? Trying to track the staff report, comments, concerns.
Yeah, staff isn't necessarily against this plan, but it will require a waiver from council for 2 accesses to a collector street. And our code requires that access be taken from a local street unless otherwise waived by council.
Okay.
So would require that existing home lot to be modified to include a flag on it.
And of course, then we understand, you know, those issues and like I said, I think we're good either way. Whatever the council's desire would be on this topic, we'll go that direction. So very good. At a minimally, we do need the waiver for the north access point. That is crucial for the development. So we'd appreciate the consideration of that. Very good. Then I wanted to just touch on the deferral items. Okay, so we have, again, the subdivision here is precipitated by the need to, you know, get a lot for the church parcel. And so the discussion with the early planning discussion with staff was, well, maybe we go ahead and plat the entire property. You know, as the church lot, the lot for the home, and then sort of a couple jumbo lots, right? They would really fully come back to you folks for reconsideration on how they get developed. And then at that time, of course, you'd have the opportunity to continue to work on all the rest of the normal requirements for standard subdivision improvements, right? So some of the waivers we're asking for are the typical residential subdivision amenities, some of those things. The other waiver we're requesting for deferral, if you will, not really a waiver, right? Just like, let me thank you for pointing that out. Not a waiver, a deferral. The frontage improvements on Amity, right? So this project intends to fully complete its frontage for the church parcel on Amity. So meet all the standard requirements for landscaping, sidewalks, et cetera. We'll build all those. Once we get to never remember the name of that lateral, the Culkin lateral. Once we get to that and further west, we'd like to defer those improvements. So they could be done at the time of the subdivision, a further subdivision on that side of the lateral. So all the subdivision deferral items, there's not that many, but there's a few. We would like those deferred at this time, if you could, please consider that. Noted on 5B for outstanding issues for the council to consider, at the very last sentence of that, Sonia did note that, you know, a sort of another alternative would be to phase the plat. So again, we thought it'd be okay to sort of plat the whole property as jumbo lots, allow them to come back for re-subdivision with you folks to look at it. And that's why we're doing the deferral. To avoid the deferrals, we could phase the subdivision. So kind of a choice point there. Right now, our application in front of you is for deferral and plat the whole property.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Morton.
on that point, which is easier to track? A deferral or a phased to ensure the improvements are put in at the right time? If there is an easy, if one's easier than the other.
The deferral is fine to include provisions for such in the development agreement.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter really either way. Same result. Thank you.
Very good. So that's the end of my discussion on the deferral items. I just wanted to point those out, and be super clear with you guys how that all came about, so you know. And then, the last item, or I guess got a couple more items. One, I want to just clarify that we are aware of the roundabout that would occur at Amity and the intersection of our collector road, Oak Briar Way. And we're intending to dedicate the right of way for that. And so that's the right of way portion is taken care of. And of course, the improvements, we're accommodating those already in our site design for this project. Okay. Let's see, then the next item, I just wanted to address the sewer for you guys, the sewer, sanitary sewer. So we have a plan, and it's actionable. And we've been working with Hawkins Companies, who owns the property at the southwest corner and northwest corner of Amity and Meridian. Okay, I believe there's applications that are live for Syringa Crossing, if I have the name right. And so I've been working with Paul Stevens at Hawkins for probably a couple of years on this, working on that, to master plan the sewer. And, really working with city engineering staff to plan the sewer. This property happens to be right on a sewer shed, so west of the Calkin wants to go drain to the west, and then this property, the church property, really wants to drain to the east, and so really drain back to the Hawkins property. So it's well planned, it's coming together. Worked with Paul, we have a program in hand on how we'll get access to the sewer. It needs to be constructed through them to Amity, and then up Amity to our project. So we're prepared to undertake that work. And there is an email on record from Paul Stevens that it sort of identifies that. So that issue is handled. And then I believe that's all I want to cover technically. Next, I wanted to introduce Doug Conley to come up and say a few things. Before I do that, though, I want to ask if I can address any other technical questions.
Council, any additional questions at this time? Okay.
Good, thank you. Have Doug come up.
Good evening, Doug.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, city staff. Thank you, Sonia, for all the hard work you guys have done, and you do appreciate that. Again, my name is Doug Conley. I'm the lead pastor at Stonehill Church, and we are meeting at Mountain View High School, and we are about 8 years old, and it's just it's a blessing to be in Meridian. We love this community. I live here, and we're excited for this building for many reasons. One, obviously, for our congregants and the people that attend Stonehill, and just very blessed to have a place where we can kind of put a stake in the ground and say, this is where we are, we're staying, even though we're 8 years old, but just to let the community know we're here. But also, we just want to continue to be a light to our community, and to serve and to share. One of our core values at Stonehill Church is that we love our community, and we're about our local community. And so we do our best to serve and do things and resource as much as we possibly can to help the city and the Treasure Valley. And we believe that with this building, we're going to be able to do more of that and to be able to have a home base to be able to do that. So we can't wait for that. I live in South Meridian, and I also know there's not a lot of meeting places in South Meridian. A lot of places, it's new, it's growing. A lot of houses are coming in, as you know. And so we also see as an opportunity to be able to be a place for the community too, not just for our church, but for the surrounding community. And so I know there's houses going up all around. And as you said before, we've been waiting on sewer, and you guys know this. I've talked to many of you about this. We've been waiting for sewer. It feels like forever, but we're so thankful for the opportunity and a path forward in this. And so, again, thank you for the opportunity tonight. We're excited. We can't wait to see what's going to happen, and we really appreciate you and this community. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Council, any questions? You know, it's just right on cue as Mr. Stewart walks in. I'm sure he's just here to talk about the wonderful sewer plans for this property. That wasn't one you really don't need to talk unless you want to. All right. Ms. Clerk, we want to sign up on this item.
Mr. Mayor, we did not.
Okay. Is there anybody present that would like to provide testimony on this item, either in the room or online? Okay, seeing nobody that would like to provide testimony. Council, would you like to have any further conversations or comments before we ask the applicant if they want to make any final comments?
Mayor.
Councilwoman Little Roberts.
Mr. Mayor, I just feel like I should put it on record that I do attend Stonehill. Doug and I had some early conversations prior to my being on council, just mostly giving direction regarding who he could talk to at the city. And, but I feel where I'm not involved in the operations, haven't been involved in anything that I can be fair and make a clear decision.
Thank you. I have attended Stonehill and I watch online quite frequently from that standpoint. And I've had several conversations about sewer particularly. So it was great to see that that issue has a path forward, but I have no relationship otherwise. Okay, would the applicant like to make any final comments at this time?
I'm going to grab my pen that I left up here, but I do want to just open myself up for any other questions if we have any clarity, if you need clarity on anything. Otherwise, take a seat.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
would you mind going through the plan to build the local street? I think we went through the flag idea briefly in detail, but I don't know, Sonia, if you're able to pull up that slide. I think the flag idea is fresh in our minds. We could sort of compare it.
Very good. Yeah, happy to. I'll wait for the slide to arrive. That's okay. No pressure. So with the, maybe I'll open it up while she's pulling that back up. The local street, you know, there are a few little complications with it, not to say we can't work through them, but there's a fairly significant grade differential between the residential, the home and where the church property is. There's an embankment there. And then there would just be a road right between the house and the church. So that's really the core reasons why we were offering an alternative to not building a road there, was to be able to, I like the design better personally. We felt that we could address, you know, substantively meet the design intent by taking access south to the collector road south of the existing home. And so those are really the core reasons why we're asking for an alternative here. Now, you know, staff had commented, hey, we're asking for waivers for 2 roads or 2 access points to a collector. And thus then we said, okay, you know, we certainly need one because we really just don't have another alternative to that one, to the northerly one. But the southerly one, you know, a road could be built there. And so it would basically just, you know, create an intersection there. We'd stub out the road out to a point where it would be on the eastern side of the proposed Lot 2, Block 1, which is the existing house. And then we would put in a temporary or a sort of a fire department turnaround of some sort. We still need to perfect that, but there would be a design that would, you know, pass everybody's approval. And there'd be some sort of turnaround, and then we'd probably likely enter the church property, church parcel from that turnaround. And so we would need to redesign the church a little bit here. Of course, the full design of the church, and we'll be back to discuss that in design review and CZC and so forth. But right now, it's just the conditional use permit is for just the use, right? And so I wouldn't get hung up on, can we accommodate the design with the road? We can, if we needed to. It's just that, there's two alternatives. And in the future, again, with this alternative, the road would stub probably further south, and that's what the dash lines are. The road would stub south and tie into this future local street that would be planned. And so that would be how the traffic would flow.
Mr. Mayor.
Did I answer that?
Councilman Schrader.
Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. So you build the local street here toward where the fire turnaround is, and then the extension would come later in a different phase, it sounds.
Yeah.
Just one, Mr. Mayor, if you'll permit me to make a comment. What I like about this design is it feels a little more connected to me, compared to you kind of just adding a flag and then not, you kind of have two different disconnected pieces of the ultimate subdivision. If you look at the property as a whole. So that's just one piece of feedback. I personally am leaning toward the local street. I think it will result in a more connected neighborhood. So I appreciate, that's important to me. I don't know how other council members feel, but I appreciate the flexibility around trying to accomplish that.
Very good. Yeah, and again, we wanted to develop this idea, so we had choices, and so really, again, we're good either way.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman
At
Borton.
that point, I think Councilwoman Strader's spot on. I tend to agree, and John, you do a great job. The ability to provide this flexibility, the local street, the policy that we have, you can meet it. It's there for a purpose. I don't think it necessitates waiving it. Having two accesses understandably seems appropriate too, but I tend to agree that the local street of the two options is probably the better long-term solution, understanding that you'll make some adjustments to make that work. So just my thoughts on before and hearing the testimony today. And the deferral, if it doesn't make a difference, I understand the reason for the deferral, and I don't have any concern over that request as well. It seems appropriate in this circumstance. So
That all sounds great.
Good work.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Taylor.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to be presented two options that you could live with and let us choose. I'm not sure I want to be in that position. But I'm going to agree with Councilwoman Strader. In looking at the two back and forth, it seems like it's a better approach. And I like that very much. So also I think it's great to have a church in this area. I appreciated, Pastor, your comments about it kind of being a community center. It's free for the city, but it's a great place for congregating and gathering. So I think that's grateful to see that going up there. But I think this is a good project.
Council, any additional questions or comments with the applicant? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borton.
there's no further discussion or questions. Well, maybe there's going to be discussion, but we'll do step one and close the public hearing on H 2023-0041.
Second.
Have a motion second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the public hearing is closed.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Borton.
This application, as presented, again, John's done a great job. It's the right use in the right spot. I think it fits, it makes sense, and is going to be certainly an asset to this area of our community. the DA modification and the CUP all seems to fit and the conditions are appropriate. So staff's done a great job in outlining it. My thought on the items at issue, I think the waiver of the 2 accesses on Oak Briar is appropriate as noted. The deferral of the improvements in 5B in the staff report that staff's indicated they can manage and address also seems appropriate under these circumstances. And the local street option being the second access to Oak Briar that's presented, it's actually on the screen now, would be the appropriate second access as presented rather than the flag lot option. So I think those were the outstanding issues before us and would be inclined to approve it with those responses to the conditions.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman Schrader.
that was a motion. I would second the motion.
I was just seeing, I didn't want to rush discussion. Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Borton.
move we approve H 2023-0041, inclusive of the deferral and conditions as addressed in my comments just moments ago.
Second.
Have a motion and a second that works for staff. We good with the way Mr. Borton did that? Okay.
Legal, good?
Yeah. All right. Is there discussion on the motion? If not, clerk call the roll.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Cavanagh.
Aye.
Roberts. Taylor.
Aye.
Strader.
Aye.
Borton.
Aye.
All ayes, motion carries and the item is agreed to. Thank you very much and good luck on the next phase. Council, do you need to take a break or are we ready to go?
Keep going.
All right, we'll keep going. All right, with that, we'll move on to item 4, which is a public hearing for Avani Neighborhood H 2023-0049. We will open this public hearing with staff comments.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. The applicant is here to present their project for Avani neighborhood. The applications that are before you are for annexation and zoning and preliminary plat. The site consists of 33.71 acres of land zoned RUT in Ada County, located at the southeast corner of Franklin Road and Black Cat, north of I-84. History on the property is none. The comprehensive flume designation is medium high-density residential. The applicant proposes to annex 35.214 acres of land with an R15 zoning district, which is listed in the zoning district compatibility matrix in the 10-mile area plan as one of the best choices for the zoning in the medium high-density residential designation. The property is designated median high-density residential on the future land use map and is located within the area known as the 10-mile interchange specific area plan. The medium high-density residential areas are recommended to develop primarily with relatively dense multifamily housing such as row houses, townhouses, condominiums, and apartments, not all single-family attached and detached homes as proposed by the applicant. These areas should have a mix of housing types that achieve an overall average density target rate of 12 dwelling units per acre, with densities ranging from 8 to 15 units per acre. The proposed development incorporates a mix of single-family attached and single-family detached homes, resulting in an overall gross density of 7.59 units per acre, and consistent with the target density desired in the medium high-density residential flume designation for the 10-mile area plan. Townhomes should be included in this development to be more consistent with the plan. However, the property to the east has approval to construct a 515-unit multifamily development to offset the need for additional multifamily in the area. Mixed employment areas are also entitled or in the development process to the west, south, and southeast. So it is conceivable that this development may provide additional housing options for these employment areas. The 10-mile interchange area has intended to look, feel, and function differently than a typical residential subdivision. It operates as a form-based specific area plan where the design of the built environment is the primary review element and is intended to work in conjunction with the land use and zoning designations. These design elements should not be treated as a checklist, but used to implement an overall vision and support a traditional neighborhood design desired by the plan. Out of the 256 single-family units, only 10 are alley-loaded. The others are all front-loaded with living area either at the same plane or behind the garages away from the street. A few of the units have usable porches that might meet the guidelines. No porches are proposed on the side facades. All units have single two-car garage doors, not separate doors. The proposed elevations do not meet the design criteria that encourage building entrances to be situated close to the street, primarily due to their garage-dominated nature. Elevations for the alley-loaded units were not submitted with the application, making it difficult for staff to determine if they comply with these guidelines. Staff believes that the plat should incorporate more alley-loaded lots. However, the applicant believes there isn't a market for this type of housing and has elected to limit the number of alley-loaded homes to 10, which is inconsistent with the plan. Shorter block lengths and narrow streets help build a greater sense of community. As proposed, these lots are narrow and garage-dominated, creating more driveways and less tree-lined streets along the primary streets, which contradicts the traditional neighborhood design principles. More alley-loaded homes would enhance the streetscape for this development and the ground the front porches to the primary street per the plan. Some of these design elements are not required by the UDC as envisioned by the plan. Therefore, the applicant requests that the council allow some deviation to these design elements. A preliminary plat is proposed consisting of 256 lots, building lots, and 25 landscape lots, 6 common driveways, and 2 alleys, and 1 non-buildable lot on the 33.71 acres of land in the R15 zoning district. And proposed lots range in size from 2,436 to 5,357 square feet, with an average lot size of 3,584 square feet. The subdivision is proposed to develop in 3 phases as shown on the preliminary plat. The applicant is currently collaborating with the property owners directly to the south and east to complete the collector street connection to Black Cat. The city desires to have the street dedicated and constructed before residents occupy the homes in this development. A minimum of 7 points of site amenities are required based on the area of single-family residential development. Qualified amenities should include features listed in the UDC. A large park that includes a children's playground with a play structure, swings, climbing rocks, and a climbing dome, seating benches within a safe fenced area, 2 pickleball courts, and fenced dog park is proposed, which meets the minimum standard. The 10-foot wide regional pathways along Black Cat Road and Vanguard Way consist of approximately 2,500 linear feet. Additionally, the 5-foot micro pathway running north and south on the east side of the property spans 1,000 linear feet. Overall, the proposed amenities exceed the minimum standards. Staff recommend denial to commission of the proposed annexation and preliminary plat as the proposed project does not align with the purpose and the intent of the 10-mile area plan as outlined in the analysis and staff's report in accordance with the findings. The applicant had been made aware of staff's concerns and has elected to forego some of staff's recommendations to gain a favorable recommendation. Despite staff's repeated suggestions for the applicant to apply for a comprehensive plan amendment to better align with the design criteria and the 10-mile area plan, the applicant showed no interest in pursuing the recommendation. However, council should rely on all relevant information when determining if this project is consistent with the plan and open to allowing deviations from design elements as desired by the applicant. City Council recommended denial of the project. Summary from the commission recommended denial of the project. Summary of the commission public hearing. In favor is Heath Clark. In opposition, there was none. Commenting was Heath Clark. Written testimony on this project is none. Key issues were none. Key issue of discussion by commission, meeting the target density for the project. Does the annexation request before the city fit the vision of the community and what the city is trying to accomplish in this area? The spirit of the 10-mile area plan is to provide something different, not the same characteristics as you find everywhere else in the city. The project lacks the design elements required within the 10-mile area plan. Commission's changes to staff's recommendation were none. Outstanding issues are none. Written testimony since commission hearing are none. And that concludes staff's presentation, and I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Stacy. Council, any questions for staff?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Taylor.
Thank you. And Stacy, I have one question. In the staff report, it said there's no flexibility in the design elements for the plan. Can you help me understand? If it's a comprehensive plan, I understand it helps give us guidance on how we want to see the city develop, but why is there no flexibility? And what does that mean when you say there's no flexibility in the design elements? Because it seems like that's sort of the crux of maybe the staff recommendations is how these, how it's being designed, being laid out. So I just want to understand why we would use those terms, there's no flexibility, and really what does that actually mean?
Mr. Bale, Mayor, Councilman Taylor. So those words were actually written in the 10-mile area plan, exactly like that. So staff included them in the report.
So Mayor, Council, I'm happy to elaborate a little bit more on that topic. If you had a chance, if you read the plan, which Stacy and I are in the plan quite a bit with applicants, there's always, I think, as Stacy mentioned in her presentation to you, the 10-mile plan is supposed to be something different, something unique, a set of guidelines and principles that all of the landowners that develop in that area would adhere to and follow. And those would be the guiding principles that you, staff, the city would use to guide development in that area. Now, we realize sometimes, as you heard in the previous presentations tonight, sometimes things don't always align with everyone's vision. And the comprehensive plan is a visionary document. So you have to balance that policy versus code. And that's what we try to do in our presentation and our staff report, Commissioner or Councilman Taylor, is that we're trying to walk that fine line. We realize we may not be able to hit all of those targets and meet that mark, but we have to get closer than what's before you this evening. And so that's why we bring that to your attention. The idea was this area would be a form-based design concept out here, something different than our typical zoning ordinance that we have. And usually that's why you see such stringent requirements in our 10-mile area plan above the other comp plan policies, because we want these to be walkable. We want these to be tree-lined streets. We want narrow streets. This area is meant to act as its own little mini city, not to leave the area and go home to your suburban home in Meridian. It's for you to live, work, and play in this area. In order to do that, you have to have many of those design concepts that we've asked for in this staff report.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Schrader.
what might be really helpful, if it's possible for planning staff, just because we have newer members of council, and to refresh everybody's memory, when was the 10-mile specific area plan approved? What was the process that we went through? Certainly, we have made some small exceptions to the 10-mile area plan since I've been on council, but we have been very strict about adhering to the plan, at least since I've been on. But maybe just an overview of the process that we went through.
Mayor, members of the council, Councilwoman Strader, happy to do that. So this plan was adopted in 2007. So it was pretty ambitious. That's when I started with the city. So it was just newly fresh to the city at that time. And went through a rigorous process, a lot of stakeholders, a lot of developers, a series of meetings over the years to get it right, 2-year process to adopt this plan. So all of that context is found in the comprehensive plan. And these were the set of principles that everyone agreed to adhere to. Now, I would mention that the plan did have other steps to follow after the adoption of the plan, and that was to amend the ordinance appropriately, come up with design concepts that could be codified. And I can tell you, those changes have happened incrementally over the years. So they weren't, the comp plan wasn't necessarily adopted in 2007 and we changed the code to align with all of those concepts. No, Over, I think in 2009, we actually approved 2 new zoning designations that came from that effort. That was the ME zone and then the HE zone that is currently in the comprehensive plan now. And then over the years, we've also updated our traditional neighborhood districts to align with some of those design elements as well. Anyways, hopefully that gave you enough context as to, and I guess a little bit more for the council. And a lot of this development hasn't occurred and started in 2012. So we actually adopted the plan in 2007. And now with the help of Brighton and some of the URD work that we did, we were actually able to spur development in this area. And now you can see that work coming to fruition based on all of those efforts that we put into that.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Schrader.
Maybe just one follow-up. Do you think, given that the plan was created starting in 2007, now it's 2024, it's been a while, does it seem appropriate at some point for us to circle back to the plan and update it more holistically? Like, would you expect that we would do a process like that?
Mayor, Councilwoman Strader, absolutely. I think we've talked about it internally as staff because we certainly don't want to be up here debating what rules to apply and what policies to apply and what doesn't apply. We're not in the business of doing that. We want to present you facts, give you the right information so you can make an informed decision. But we are as some of you may be or may not be aware, there's a lot happening just in this section of Meridian currently with what's happening to the south, to the east, even to the west. And so whatever we're doing here, we want to be mindful of that, and we want to make sure that those uses do align with those policies and that vision. And that's why we are taking such a hard stand on this particular project this evening, because we've held everyone else to a higher standard in this section. And we just feel like this is the residential component that we need to help that employment and additional housing in the area. So we're pretty passionate about it this evening, to be honest with you. We want this one to work, and we want it to be in alignment with those policies as much as possible.
Mr. Mayor?
Councilwoman Schrader.
Thank you for your candid comments.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Taylor.
just to clarify, so we haven't revised the design elements since it was adopted in 2007. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then, Mr. Mayor, if I may, a quick follow-up.
Councilman Taylor.
How many, in this area, how many other projects have come before council for approval that have kind of been subject to the same design elements?
Maybe the way,
If I
how
ask
many
like that.
acres of the plan roughly have been annexed and put under these guidelines? Any idea? Are we 50% of the plan? 25% of the plan?
Mayor, members of the council, I can probably sketch something out for you real quick on GIS, but I don't have a number off the top of my head. But by the time this project, if this project's annexed in and the adjacent properties, that everything south of Franklin will be primarily in the city at that point, except for that southwest corner at Franklin and Black Hat. So it's a significant amount of acres. And then when you look at the north side of Franklin, that one's pretty much filled in at this point. I'd say at least 80%, if not 90% filled in on that north side. So it's happening. And then we have industrial farther to the east or to the west. And the only reason why that is not developing at this time is because of the sewer challenges that we have in that area. It has to come down from McDermott. So we're talking, I think the plan was over 2,800 acres, and I think we're probably close, at least 1,000 or more acres that have been developed under this plan. Back to your point, every project's been conditioned to comply with the 10-mile interchange specific area plan, but each development has a different context than this. So it's not easy for staff to say everything has to do this. As you know, there's always specific challenges to each project that we review. And what we try to do, whatever project we look at the development context around that development that's coming in, and we try to match that as best we can and try to be consistent in that process. So when you look at the north side of Franklin, you'll see a lot of the design theme and the same elements happening on that side, and where this may be a little bit different. I'd also let council know that the Bria development, that is the Corey Barton sub that is on the south side of Franklin and currently built out, that was adopted and approved prior to the adoption of the 10-mile plan. So while you might not see some of those same elements in that development, they did have alley-loaded product, townhomes, multifamily, and even single-family in that development, in keeping with the spirit. At the time that that project was annexed, it was mentioned to the council at the time that the city was in the effort of adopting the 10-mile plan, and they were held to some pretty specific design criteria in their development agreement to align with that vision.
One other I don't know if it's a question, a comment, observation, but one of the things that has always struck me with the 10-mile area specific plan, there always seems to be an interesting road interface with the development. This one really doesn't have that. This is almost like a standalone parcel, because you don't have any of the collector roads that are going through it, which are creating, in a lot of ways, a connection to the rest of the development, the rest of the 10-mile area specific plan. And I don't know if that was design, lack of, just the placement of the parcel, but, the way this one is presented, it is almost a standalone subdivision in a lot of ways, and doesn't feel like it would be connected to the other roads and the traditional projects that we've seen. Any feedback, comment, thoughts, and maybe that's for the applicant as well, if in that context, but yeah, this one, I feel like you can take this and go put this in any place, because you don't have that major intersection, that major component like a lot of the other properties do in this area.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, it's hard to see on this map here, but what you don't see in some of the graphics is we do have planned to connect into this. And Stacy and I just actually pre-apped on that odd shaped piece just along the north boundary here, where they're thinking about coming in and doing a medium high density residential development. And they are required to provide a collector road along the south boundary of this project. So you don't see that interface yet, but this property is bound by essentially 2 collector roads on each end to help tie in with that integration with the plan. And I know the adjacent property just to their east that is approved for multifamily just changed ownership, and they intend on coming in and presenting you a different plan in the future. And so we're hoping, if you had a chance to look at the staff report, we are also encouraging the applicant to stub a road to this particular site. At least that was one of the comments we made in our staff report, that they think about stubbing a street to the eastern property so that the 2 neighborhoods could connect as well. So we're trying to build that in as this plan comes to fruition, but both the commission and staff felt it needed some more refinement before we could recommend approval of it.
So maybe to ask the question if the road was going through this property as compared to on 2 adjacent sides of the property, because that's, that's what basically the road network isolates this property in a lot of ways, in my opinion, compared to a lot of the other plan elements where you have to integrate the road elements into it. I'm not just going to say you can't do that on the edges of these, of this project, but does it seem, that's just what it seems like to me, is like, here we are just standalone, we don't have to integrate. So we didn't, because it's really not being pushed on us, it's on the peripherals of our project. Just when I'm looking at it, that's what I see, because it's just very much not like the other elements that we've seen with larger parcels. I don't have an answer, just a comment, Stacey, if you want to comment.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, so it would be the parcel directly to the south that we've been working with. That developer is going to be coming in a few weeks. That also has the same road that also goes through that parcel and the parcel east of it. And they're mixed employment, and we have went through 4 requests for continuance to meet the plan, and we finally got there. But just to give you some context of what's going on the south too. And it doesn't have a collector road through the center of the property.
Council, any additional questions for staff?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Cavanagh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bill or Stacy, when I'm looking at the zoning map, if maybe you could go through those the single family residential complexes that are north of Franklin, and maybe identify those design elements that exist in those projects that you were suggesting for the application that's before us tonight.
Yeah, Mayor, members of the council, it would be difficult to do that without having all of the conditions of approval in front of me. But Stacy, if you want to leave that up, I can tell you there's, so we have the townhomes just north of the school. And they actually have access off a private street, not a primary street. But the elements that do front on the public collector street, the units were actually required to orient the front porches towards that collector street and tie in with that primary street per the design standards, and then all the access, and then they had internal streets or alleys, and they also had a MU, which we required. So again, more alley loads, all townhomes in that particular case. As you transition to the R15 piece, we are currently going through the design review process with that aviation subdivision that was approved. Originally, it came in as part of the charter school. It was going to be their ball fields, and they sold that off, and you guys approved a comprehensive plan map amendment and a rezone to an R15 zone to allow a mix of townhomes, duplexes, and multifamily or fourplexes on that site. They were conditioned to, in their development agreement, to meet the design concepts. They are currently working with staff on their design review application to comply with that requirement. The first renderings they submitted did not. They had no front porches, garages were in front of the units. We had them deviate. The next project was the Newkirk project that we came in. We worked with the applicant. We made some concessions on that particular project. They're up against the railroad tracks. They had limited street frontage, local street access to the homes. There were only 62 units in those. 30% of those were alley low townhomes. And the other portion was 216 multifamily units that complied with the plan. And it may or may not stay multifamily. They may come back and do something different on that site, and they will be required to comply with the plan. Again, the difference here on that compared to this site was they asked for TNR zoning. And so they were scrutinized a little bit more with that TNR zoning. In the code, again, that's code versus the policy. The code requires a mix of residential types. And it also in the TNR standards, it says it's anticipated that the majority of the homes would be alley loaded. It didn't say thou shall be alley loaded. So that was left up to this council's determination as to whether or not 30% met that threshold. Based on the product type that they presented to you, you guys were comfortable. And excuse me, the TNR zone also said that the perimeter lots could be alley or garage dominated or garage oriented towards the street. So that was the argument and the justification of why we allowed a deviation to that plan in that one. The other apartments, that project was denied once and came back with less density. I wouldn't say I'm the biggest fan of them. They are townhome style, but they were approved as multifamily, and they did have a mix of units. And then you also had the other Silver Oaks apartments that were again approved prior to the adoption of the plan. So they already had an entitlement that we had to not get them to be in complete adherence to that. So again, I think we've done a pretty good job. And so when we took all of that into context of looking at Newkirk or all these other developments, we were trying to make sure that it was integrated with the collector network and also having the same design elements, which I think it turned out pretty well, in my opinion, at least on the north side.
So,
Is it
Mr. Mayor,
perfect? No.
Councilman Cavanagh.
thanks. So Bill, I guess I appreciate kind of answer my question then a little bit more. How many single family home applications have we processed that are in the 10-mile plan? Not multifamily, single family.
The only ones that I can, Councilman Cavanagh, it would be Bariah at this point, which is the Corey Barton
One?
sub on the Bariah subdivision, which is Corey Barton's sub.
But
on
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
Bill, didn't you just state though that came in before the 10-mile plan was approved?
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Cavanagh.
Bill, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Then this would be the first single-family residential application that we would receive that would be subject to the 10-mile plan. Is that what you're telling me? I just want to make sure I'm hearing you right.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this would be the first one with, well, it depends on your definition of townhomes and single family attached and duplexes. They're all the same. They're all single family in our code. So
Yes, it's okay.
So
And
not necessarily, no.
And Mr. Mayor, one more just real quick, and then
Councilman
I
Cavanagh.
promise I'll be quick. Bill, I want to make sure that I'm reading this right. This application does include townhouses and alley load as well, correct? Which are design elements that you previously indicated were asked for in other applications in the 10-mile plan?
Mayor, members of the council, this does not have townhomes. It has attached and detached homes with alley load. So the alley loads are even single family detached, not townhomes.
I appreciate that clarification. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Council, any additional questions for staff? Then would the applicant like to come forward? Good evening, Mr. Clark.
Hi, everyone. Heath Clark, 251 East Front Street in Boise, representing the applicant. And Stacy, do you have my presentation handy? I guess I should say hi to everybody and good evening, Your Honor, to one particular council member.
Well, and while this is pulling up, I've had the pleasure of having some conversations over the last year, and some people that have come forward say, you're always tough when I come before you, and it's like, well, sometimes some people only show up for the tough applications. So nice to see you again, Keith.
No, I should I take that as a compliment?
Yeah, absolutely.
I often say that if it wasn't hard, I wouldn't have anything to do. So it's good to be here with everybody once again. So thank you. Got it. Okay, so this is a project that's within the 10-mile interchange specific area plan. And rather than trying to say that 400 times tonight, I'm just going to call it the 10-mile plan, if that's okay with everybody. As you know, the 10-mile plan is, as the council member mentioned, is a comprehensive planning document. It applies to an area that's seeing significant development and infrastructure improvements, including the widening of Black Cat, current construction of the mid-mile collector, which I'll point out. And it, as I think it was alluded to here, it is one of the last remaining medium high density residential parcels to be developed. There's ongoing development on the southwest and east. This map shows you some of the area around us. You can see that we're just north of the freeway, adjacent to Black Cat, and there are several projects that are in process as we speak tonight. You can see here the property in yellow, it's there on the left. And it's shown against the land use designations that are called for in the 10-mile plan. So this is the medium high density residential designation. You'll hear me call it MHDR a bunch of times tonight, but the medium high density residential designation. That calls for a density band between 8 to 15 units. Staff mentioned a target of 12. A target of 12 is described in the plan as being for the medium high density residential area, not on a project per project basis. Under the comp plan, this is the regular comp plan, not the 10-mile plan, section 311. We round to the nearest whole number when it comes to density. So we are right at the bottom, but within the density band of 8 to 15 for the medium high density residential. This is a priority growth area for the city as we understand it. City services are available. It will complete the transportation network in exactly where the 10-mile plan calls for it. The site is 33.71 acres with 256 single-family homes proposed. One important detail that I think goes to Councilmember Cavanagh's point is that this is for sale single-family product, which brings a unique element for this area in general. What is around us is primarily going to be apartments or in large part rentals. The dimensions and the density are both consistent with the R15, and we meet the 10-mile plan goals by providing multiple housing types across the MHDR designation. Again, this is a holistic look. The 10-mile plan speaks to providing a variety of housing types across the MHDRs. It doesn't say that you have to have that within each individual project. To the mayor's point, there is a bit of an element of this being standalone. There's the collector on the south, but for now, one thing I would point out is that we have done the narrower street sections internally. That is a 10-mile plan goal. As we look at the transportation element, this is the West Vanguard Way, which is the mid-mile collector that'll be provided with this. And I know the mayor likes to see developers get together and get the infrastructure in. And this is an example of that with BVA, CBH, and DevCo putting that in, and it'll be completed later this year. As we look further at the site, we have proposed 19.8% qualified open space, 3,500 feet of paths and regional paths. That includes the 10-foot multi-use pathways along Black Cat and Vanguard. We have numerous amenities, attractive landscaping. And when we talk about the amenities, I do want to be clear that we don't just exceed the amenities, we triple the amenity numbers. We have 24.5 amenity points when only 7 are required. That includes a $1.3 million community pool. And then as well, the pickleball courts and the dog park, and then the benches that the 10-mile plan speaks to. I mentioned our pathways, which you can see here. And then in terms of housing, so these are the elevations that we're proposing. These are the single-story detached units with a porch that is incorporated, as you can see in one of the elevations. These are the detached 2-story units. And these attached. And then we, at staff's has mentioned that they would like to see an elevation for the alley-loaded product. So this is the elevation that we're proposing for those. That does also include a porch. And I'll return to this in a moment, but I think it's important that, because I'm going to come back to it a few times, is that we placed all of our alley-loaded product at the entry of the project. So alley load, the benefit that it has is that it creates a street scene that people like to see. We took that and we put it at a place of prominence right at the entry of the project, and I'll describe that here in a little bit more. So staff discussions, I want to be fair to the applicant in terms of what those conversations have looked like. This project has been through 18 months of discussions. There's been 3 revisions of the application. There's been 4, as I understand it, pre-application meetings with staff. There were modifications that were made. We removed the entry onto Black Cat at staff's request. We added the alley loaded product at the entry of the project. So again, not tucked somewhere in behind. And we added porches to 2 of our elevations. So I think as we talk about this, it's important to not talk in platitudes. It's hard to do that when we're talking about a policy and we're trying to apply that at the level of code. The 10-mile plan, as everyone here knows, and I think it was hinted to, but the 10-mile plan has not been incorporated into code in the way that you would typically see a comprehensive plan incorporated. That was one of the action steps for the 10-mile plan. That's not happened. And so that creates some complications, and I'm going to talk about those a little bit here. But if I were to summarize the staff report in just a couple bullet points, I would describe it this way. There's no issue with the code. Under the R15 standards, we satisfy everything. There's not an issue with city services. We have utilities available, services are available. But there are 3 things that staff claims are inconsistent. One is the alleys and porches. There's the target density. And again, we need to keep in mind target versus the allowed 8 to 15. And then there's the block lengths. So let's talk about the 10-mile policies. So beginning with the density, the 10-mile plan says that the recommended density in the MHDR is between 8 and 15. As I mentioned, we round according to the comp plan. So we're at 8, we satisfy the recommended density. The 10-mile plan also says that there's to be provided across the MHDR a variety of housing types. We have single-family detached and attached as well as alley loaded, which complements the multifamily that's around us. As staff mentioned, the existing entitlement, the existing approval to our east is for 500 apartments. Now, they may change that in the future. We can only operate on what's currently entitled, and that's for 500 apartment units. So multifamily is right next to us. We're coming in with a project that will provide single-family for sale product. Now, this, I think, gets to Councilmember Taylor's question. There are inconsistencies in the way the 10-mile plan describes its requirements. So yes, it has the language that Stacy mentioned, but those design elements, you can see on the screen how they're described. They're described as recommendations in the 10-mile plan. And as we talk about this some more, you'll see that it actually makes sense that those would be recommendations, because you can't fit everything into the same box that we're being asked to fit in the medium high density residential area. And I'll try to explain that a little bit more as we go on here. So, well, let me actually say one more thing about that point. There was a question that came up about some of the projects that occurred north of Franklin, where a lot of the MHDR projects have occurred. Several projects have been approved up there. In fact, we were involved in one of them, which was Newkirk. As far as I'm aware, and I know for certain within Newkirk, there's never been a strict insistence on meeting each of the 10-mile design plans or design requirements in every instance. There's always been consideration of outside factors, which is appropriate whenever you're trying to apply a comprehensive plan to a fact-specific situation. So let's focus in on alley loaded and lots and porches. So 20 years, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration. We're almost 20 years. Maybe I should have said that instead of 20 years. But we're getting close. And the difficulty that I think we all have to confront is that there are some elements of the 10-mile plan that work at lower densities and others that do not work at higher densities. So with regard to alley loaded lots, they were in vogue at the time. That's not the case any longer. Today's buyer wants a home with a backyard, even if it's a small backyard. They want to enter their home through the front along a manicured lawn. They don't want to enter through the back on an alley that's got everybody's garbage cans and their air conditioning units. With alley loads, there is no backyard. If you're going to have outdoor living space, you got to have it on the side. That if you're going to have meaningful outdoor living space, that means pushing the lots further apart from each other, which means you're reducing the density that direction when you've already reduced the density by inserting an alley between the homes on the backside. If you don't significantly reduce the density, and again, I'm going to come back to this significant, remember, we're at 8 on the band of 8 to 15 with the number of alley loads that we've provided. If you don't significantly reduce the density, we expect that you would have the barbecues on the front porch or out on the back, no place, for the dog to go to the bathroom. In other words, they become, in our view, more like a really expensive apartment. We have concerns with alley loads, and we believe our proposal provides the density that the 10-mile plan is looking for while still providing a marketable product. With regard to porches, porches work well when you're talking about a nice country home with porch chairs and a swing, and you have room at lower densities to do that sort of thing. The 10-mile plan speaks to porches and calls out 30% of the front and recommends 2 sides of the home have porches on each one. But the 10-mile plan also wants 8 to 15 units per the acre. So that creates a square peg in the round hole. You can't have the required density and have the number of porches that the 10-mile plan calls for. So we have these inconsistencies that are hard, that we have to confront. Now, just like was true in some of these other projects, I want to focus on the things that we have done, and we think we have satisfied the 10-mile plan by taking the actions that we have. So we have concerns with it, but we think we've satisfied it. The only question really is as to degree or as to quantity. So we've included the alley loaded product. It's at the entry of our project, which means the feel that's advocated for in the 10-mile plan is provided at the entry in our most prominent lots in the most prominent area of the project as you lead into our swimming pool area. We've included porches in 2 of our 4 designs. Staff also mentioned block lengths, and I'll show you a map here. But our block lengths are shorter. The code requirement, there's no specific requirement in the 10-mile plan as to what is a standard block length, but the code requirement is 750 feet. We have no block lengths longer than 521 feet, and many are less than 250 feet. We designed those with the 10-mile plan in mind. We also have the 27-foot street section with parking only on one side to make sure that the roads remain narrow, which also is a 10-mile plan requirement. Again, we've provided the housing variety we add to the variety of housing types. And while doing all of that, we still hit the bottom of the 8 to 15 dwelling units per acre requirement. And we do so while providing, more than 3 times the number of required amenities under the code. So we've provided each of those elements that are required in the 10-mile plan. Again, the only question is as to degree. So let me build on that just a little bit. So here are the 2 elevations that include porches. And then on the right, this is the entry to our project. And the alley loaded homes are the ones that front that as you come into the project. And then just to emphasize the block length, the 10-mile plan, as I said, doesn't identify what's meant by reduced block length, but we are well below what code requires on the block length. So we do have reduced block lengths. So I'll finish up with this. As we read the staff report, there's the 3 items that need to be discussed: the alleys, the end porches, the block length, and the target density. Again, density requirement is 8 dwelling units per acre minimum. We've hit that. We're well below the city code requirements for block length, and we've incorporated porches in 2 of our designs and placed the alley loaded at the entry of our project. So we think we've incorporated those. We think that we would ask the city council to incorporate these marketability questions and the fact that this is a plan, a comprehensive plan, and show appropriate flexibility, just like the council has done in the past. So with that, I'm happy to stand down and answer any questions.
Thank you. Council, questions for the applicant?
Mr. Mayor?
Go to Your Honor.
Just one question. I'll ask you, Heath, and then staff can respond. Your slide showed amenities at 24.5 points, and the staff report says 13 points. So a clear disconnect in what qualifies or doesn't qualify. These page 15 of the staff report shows 9 + 4. I was just curious, that's a big difference.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Borton. So I didn't come out with the same calculations as they did.
Clearly.
Exactly.
Guess what
When I was adding it up.
I'm curious, what does the applicant
I'm not
think?
sure how they came up with their number, if they added extra points for
You can look and
ways or whatnot.
come back with me at that. I just seemed like that was a big discrepancy, so
No, I appreciate the question.
I might have the answer.
Yeah, Laren just mentioned to me that one glaring omission was that the pool wasn't counted, which is $1.5 million amenity.
We'll look into it for you, staff, or me and council in a second.
Councilman Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. Heath, one question about the alley loaded homes. You said you haven't voluntarily built one. You made comments that it's not really what people are looking for. It's kind of in vogue when we envisioned this 2007. Why is it, they are attractive visually. I appreciate that you've put it where people are coming in. I like that. Why do people not want them now? I mean, what